What's up, viewers and listeners? My name is Jay. I'm a registered nutritionist based here in Bristol, working with BJJ enthusiasts across the globe. On today's episode, we had Anthony Crocker, aka Crocks. He has a brown belt, which is acquired from Pedro Bessa, and is currently training at RR Brazilian Jiu-jitsu with one of our former guests, Rich Rubino. Crocker has won medals at the British Open, fought in sub-only matches, and competed on the local circuit, which has somewhat led him to acquiring a fitting name, the King of the Newquay Open. In this podcast, we talked about wrist locks, types of ultra heavies, humility in BJJ, privates, and a few funny stories to say the least, and much, much more. Thank you for tuning in, and of course, if you're not subscribed, please click that button and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching and listening. Let's get into episode 10. Oos. Right, guys, girls, my name is Jay. I'm the host of the BJJ Nutrition Podcast. I run the BDL Nutrition Consultancy. We are on episode 10. Obviously, with what we do, we make sure, obviously, jiu-jitsu enthusiasts and hobbyists and competitors are competing to the best standard, obviously, with the right nutrition and fueling themselves and making sure they're not doing anything silly with their weight cuts. Today's guest, we have the infamous
Anthony Crocker.
There we go. Anthony Crocker with us. Thanks obviously for coming along, mate. I really appreciate it. Obviously everything you got. I know you've got a lot to talk about today.
Pleasure to be asked, mate.
We've had basically an essay in terms of things that we want to cover. We'll go through obviously the basic stuff first to make sure obviously we keep in lineage with what we're doing here. But speaking of which, do you want to give a little bit of an insight to your background, obviously in jiu-jitsu, outside of jiu-jitsu, who you train under, experiences, that type of stuff?
Yeah, so I'm a Pedro Bessa brown belt. Currently training under Rich Rubino. Been with, obviously you've had him on before, one of Pedro's black belts. I've been with Peds. I started training 8 years ago now, in the infamous Merton Road garage. Got quite a good story about my first night there. Sort of started training with Pedro. I played a lot of rugby before that, and sort of went at the belts to brown belt with Peds. And then when people started to pick their black belts up, so like, you know, Rich, Rory, Rod, people like that, when they started to drift away and open their own gyms, I sort of naturally went with Rubino. Number one, because he's a bigger guy and he's obviously got a Hibbard with him, so that's two big quality jiu-jitsu practitioners for me to train with, which I need to be beaten up, quite frankly, on a regular basis to try and get better. And then additionally to that, just geographically with my work, it made sense to go over that side of town. Work-wise, I'm a school teacher, so I've been teaching for 11 years now, 10 years mainstream education, so GCSE and A-level history, among other things. But for the last year, I've been working in a special education school. Nice. So I work with students who have either got special educational needs, which means they haven't been successful in mainstream. If they've got sort of issues with their behaviour, which generally comes back to undiagnosed SEN anyway, which means they haven't been successful in mainstream. So essentially when students, I wouldn't go as far as say expelled, when they've been removed from mainstream education, sort of we try and turn them around, which is sometimes intensely frustrating, but always intensely rewarding. So probably the main thing of people who know me from this podcast today is I'm going to have to sort of watch my language and watch the subject matter, because I need to think to myself, if this landed on my head teacher's desk tomorrow, how am I going to be able to go back to work on Monday? Sure. And then outside of sort of my civilian role, I've been a military reservist for 17 years. Currently with the Army Veterinary Corps, so dog handling. I've just come off the King's coronation, which I literally crawled into my head's office on hands and knees to get 2 weeks off for. Did an operational tour of Afghanistan in 2010 with the Royal Engineers, but I've always been a reservist, and I was really keen to go away and do an operational tour, because you wouldn't be a fireman and not put a fire out, would you? Yeah, sure. So I thought if I was going to put myself through all that training and everything that goes with it, with work-life balance, then I was going to go and do it properly. So yeah, I'm the world's like busiest man, really.
That's surprising. Actually intrigued, King's coronation, how was that?
Genuinely one of the most physically and mentally demanding things I've ever done in my life.
Really?
Yeah. People just see lots of soldiers marching on television, but the prep that went into it, there was an individual from the contingent next to me. So when we're like boring you with it, when you sort of joined up into like a massed rank, we joined up with the Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers on our left, and there was a girl from there who I think she got removed 2 days before the event. I think she got removed on the Thursday, and we stepped off on the Saturday because her feet were shredded. Really? Yeah. So I teach ceremonial within the army. I'm a drill instructor, a basic drill instructor. Shout out to Tony Gibson, who was the RSM at the School of Ceremonial. But essentially, I teach quite a lot of drills, so my drill shoes were worn in. Whereas some guys had literally got them straight out of the box, new shoes on, 20,000 steps a
schoolboy.
day. Yeah, but it's what can you do? You get a kit thrown at you, and you've got to wear it. We had one girl from my lot. She turned up with a pair of shoes that were a size too small.
Oh, no.
So yeah, it was all. But 20,000 steps a day with the rifle, it was like a 10K kettlebell workout, mate.
I can imagine.
Like transferring the rifle around. But I think when I've got a new respect for ceremonial, having gone through it. It was emotional.
Well, I know this is probably bog standard and some people made this, but not. It's the fact that you guys obviously are having to train at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Basically,
yeah, so they
not to disrupt anything.
Yeah, so because obviously the centre of London needs to be closed.
Yep.
So 4 days before, they essentially shut the whole of London from about 11 o'clock at night till 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
And that was us bust into London, full dress rehearsal, did the whole thing with music and that. It was all at night. And marching out of London with Big Ben there with the sun coming up was unbelievable. It was worth the sleep, Deb.
Yeah.
But then on the day, obviously, I think the coronation kicked off at like 10 in the morning. We had breakfast at 2 a.m. So like for anyone who knows me, I was having to force food into my mouth. I never thought, I never thought I'd have to like force myself to eat a breakfast wrap. But if you don't eat calories, you're stood there, stood still, people fainting, people dropping. It was, but yeah, mentally and physically demanding. It really was.
But obviously worth the experience in the day.
Definitely worth the experience.
Something to tell the grandkids.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things. I've had a couple of my mates on the regular side that have been like, there's not many people that have, been on tours to Afghanistan and have done a major state ceremonial outside of the Guards division.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a feather in a cap as a reservist. And don't get me wrong, we've got some absolute idiots in the Army Reserve. Like we've got some people that shouldn't be there, but we've also got some really good guys.
Yeah.
And it was nice for me to be able to go and slot straight in with the regular side and make some new friends out of it. And
nice.
It was good. It was a good crack. I enjoy it as well.
Dude. That's wicked. Obviously, well, more here to talk about jiu-jitsu, not to obviously like put any downers on that.
Yeah,
so
no, exactly.
My personal interest more so than anything else, but. In terms then of competing, then you're currently obviously at brown belt.
Yeah.
Have we competed through all the belts? Or
Yeah, pretty much. So I've competed at every belt.
Completed.
Completed, yeah. Completed it, mate. Yeah. No, so there's a few infamous stories from the Newquay Open, which I'm sure we'll get into, because that used to be my thing. Every 3 months we go and do the Newquay Open because I'm super tight and I won't pay for IBJJF because paying 140 quid for a 2-person category is not what I'm about.
We'll talk
about that later on. We'll go into that later on. So competed at white belt, won a few local comps at white belt, won the British at blue.
Nice.
There was a little team of us went up, so myself, Dan O'Connell, Dave Allinson, they're both black belts now. We went up there and did pretty well. We all came back with, I think, gold medals that day, actually.
Nice.
That was a really good day out. Purple belt, won at Bristol. A couple of sub-onlys, nothing mega. Like I am a hobbyist, mate. Do you know what I mean? I've got 2 kids. I've got everything else going on in my life, and for me to be able to get on the mats 4 or 5 times a week is what it's all about. And I think what I want to try and get across today is that you've got people that are hobbyists that really enjoy it and love it and don't want to teach privates all the time, which I think which I think is a little bit of an issue in the game at the moment with a lack of humility. But we'll get onto that later.
Yeah, sure, no, that's absolutely fine. Yourself, obviously, always competed in the ultra bracket.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
I've always been over 100 kilos. When I came, like my sort of origin story, I was sort of like 120 kilos when I started coming from rugby, and that was all I was doing was just like eating and lifting weights, and I thought I was like mega hard, and then. I did a little bit of Thai boxing down in.
Nice.
So I first started. I don't think a lot of people know this story actually. I used to work in Borden. So when I first qualified as a teacher, there used to be this weird rule that if you didn't pass your NQT year, so your first year, if you didn't pass that within a year of doing your teacher training, you had to like go back and do stuff again.
Yep.
And I was like, I'm not about that. This has been something else this year. So I got a job in Borden, which is Hampshire. It's about 1 hour and 45 towards London. So I went and worked there, and I played a bit of rugby down there and everything else, bit of touch rugby. I was looking for something else to do, and there was a brother of one of the teachers I worked with. He said, "Why don't you come and do a bit of Thai?" Well, I didn't know it at the time, but it was a Team Cowbon gym, right? So I didn't know that was like obviously a top gym in that. A guy called Seb who was an absolute animal. So I just used to do I literally done a bit of pad work, a little bit of light sparring, nothing mega. But then one of the guys there had an MMA fight coming up,
right?
And he literally was like, "Oh, big lad, can you do me a favour and just basically pin me down?" Because I didn't know at the time that he wanted to practice his escapes and his underhooks. He was like, "Look, can you just hang on to me and try and keep me on the floor?" I was like, "Yes, sound." And then I found that I really enjoyed it, and I found out that what he was talking about was like submission grappling, BJJ, and what have you. So this is where, and I didn't know this until I listened to you having Rich on the show, that our sort of stories are really similar. When I then got a job in Swindon and I came back to live in Bristol, I started Googling jiu-jitsu gyms.
Okay.
And the two gyms that came up was Pedro Bessa and another one that I won't name.
In Swindon?
No, in Bristol.
Oh, in
Because I
Bristol.
was living in Bristol, driving to Swindon. So the two that came up was Pedro
Another school.
and another school. All right. And then when I Googled it, the first video that came up was Pedro fighting Kron Gracie. And I was like, well, that looks pretty
legit,
that was pretty decent. That.
Yeah.
And then and I sort of emailed Pedro, emailed me back, and then I went down and started training. I tried like double hatting both and training all week, and then I used to do jiu-jitsu and then drive to rugby after jiu-jitsu.
Wow.
So I used to go to 6 till 7 beginners, get in the car and drive to rugby training, you know? And it got to the point where I was like, I sort of realised that I'd sort of hit my ceiling with rugby. I wasn't going to get any better.
Yep.
So I ended up sticking with BJJ and going from there. But my first night at the gym, I walked in and Tom Schouder triangled me 7 times in 5 minutes. In the sparring at the end, so literally.
Does he still hold that above you now?
I don't know. I thought it was funny, and I literally, I can remember, I had my kit bag over my shoulder, and like, I don't know if you ever went to Merton Road. It was like just like a garage.
Yes.
And I got to the door, and I looked back, and I thought, I can either walk out now and pretend this never happened, right? That's like option one. Option two, I was like, there might be something in this.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was 120 kegs. I was lifting loads of weights, and Tom at the time, like he was tiny.
Yeah.
You know, I was going to use a really offensive metaphor then, but I won't. That, he was tiny, and I was like, this like skinny matchstick has just like filled me in. Like, what's going on? And I was trying my best.
Yeah.
I can't even be like, oh well, I could have punched him. You know, I was like, I had no chance. I had absolutely no chance.
Yeah.
And I thought, and then it just went from there. Then, and I went to training like 4 or 5 nights a week. And
Nice.
yeah, so that was how I got into jiu-jitsu.
That's nice, man. This is probably completely irrelevant, but I'm really intrigued. Obviously, you said you emailed Pedro. Did he get back to you pretty quickly, or was it Brazilian time?
No,
like
it was Brazilian time, to the point where I was like, oh, well, like, am I all right to speak to this bloke? If I email him again, do I look like I'm being pushy? Do you know what I mean? No, he didn't get back to me straight away. But I remember getting an email. I emailed him a little while before I sort of moved home. But yeah, he got back to me and he was like, yeah, come down whenever. I didn't realise how chilled it was.
Yeah.
Obviously with him, he's super chilled, so yeah.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So, in terms of obviously of your weight being a bit heavier, you mentioned now obviously that's come down from the 120 mark.
Oh god, yeah. I hover now between about 108 and 112. That's sort of like where I sit. People have now, you'll get people, Tom Schouder emailing him being like, oh yeah, 115 on the pastries and all that. You know, if you didn't think brioche was a food group, you'd be a super middle or whatever. But yeah, I think during the what we got to call it to avoid the algorithm, the period of time that lasted for 2 years between about 2020 and 2021 something like that. During that period of time, I got down to about 100 and 102, but all I was doing was running.
Yeah.
Like, I was just doing running and circuits. That was it. Like, there was a few of us would meet at a rugby club and do circuits. I was running 40, 50k a week. But there was nothing else to do. So especially with the online teaching at the time, like I'd log in, oh, it's brilliant. Kids play up, kick out. Oh,
I love it.
Halcyon days, mate. Like, some kids start playing up or whatever. The ones who were normally pains didn't log in, and the ones who did log in wanted to learn, and the ones who didn't, mute. It was easy. But yeah, so you do your online lesson. My drive to work was a minute, 1 minute up to my sort of loft conversion. So yeah, I'd literally be like, right, go and run 10k, come home, eat me dinner. That was something where I got myself pretty fit off the back of that.
Nice.
But despite being 110 kegs, I do quite a lot of fizz.
You do, mate. To be fair, like I said, I was speaking to you obviously last night about that, and I'm still quite intrigued to see if we can get the Matty Hud versus you roll at some point.
That'd be quite funny, actually. Yeah, not the Matty Hud fitness challenge.
Yeah, Matty Hud fitness challenge, and I think it would even be better for the pair of you to do it in no gi, so you haven't got that distinctive advantage of the gi, and I think that would be really cool to see. But who knows when we get that sorted out for the future. So obviously with the weight reduction and how it's gone, obviously from there before the infamous
period of time,
your weight obviously must have come down, right? And what was the approach? Was it again just doing more jiu-jitsu that led to it? Or?
Yeah, it was more jiu-jitsu, and I think that like actually you don't know what you don't know, and I think that if I'm being honest, up until I did jiu-jitsu, I was utterly clueless. I don't think I'd even gotten a set of scales. Like I don't think I had, because I didn't have a need to.
Yeah.
There was no need, and it wasn't until really that the Abu Dhabi Jiu-Jitsu Federation, they brought in the upper limit, didn't they?
Yeah.
So they ended up capping everything at 110.
Yeah.
And it was only then that I was like, oh, like, if I want to compete there, because I did the Abu Dhabi Grand Slam. I was going to say won the Grand Slam. It sounds like you won the whole thing.
Completed it.
Well, I'll tell you what. There's a good Dave Allenson story there where he won the British Open at like brown belt heavyweight, which is fine. Mentioned it to someone at work at his legal firm.
Yeah.
They put it in like the company newsletter, but they'd obviously Googled the British Open and were like, oh, Dave's like come top of 1,500 competitors, and he's like, got a gold medal and all that. We still hold that one over him today. But yeah, so when they brought in the upper limit, I was like, oh, maybe I need to start looking at what I'm doing. And it's only when you start looking at what calories are in things, you start to go, oh, do you know what? And I'm by no means, they say you can't out-train a bad diet. I've been trying to do it for years.
You heard it here first.
Literally, I've been trying to do it for years. But I think just like naturally from doing jiu-jitsu, and I think culturally what brought me away from rugby was rugby training is go training Tuesday, training Thursday, work hard, game on a Saturday, 10 pints of Guinness.
Yeah.
And then the culture around it as well. You screw up on a Saturday, you go Tuesday evening at training, you're still getting flack from Saturday for that pass you dropped or whatever else. And then, I got armbarred at my first Bristol Open in the final. I got silver. Wasn't a default silver. But I got armbarred in the thing. And I went into the club the next day, and in my head I was like, I don't know. And Rory came over. He probably remember this, but I do. And he went, he was a purple belt at the time, or a brown belt, and he went, oh, I saw you get caught with this yesterday, let me show you the escape to it.
I mean, I took you massively
by
surprise.
I was expecting some like humorous nickname,
yeah,
like Anthony Armbar or something like that. I was expecting something funny, and straight away, like culturally, and that's where I get a bit annoyed with the culture of like, oh, can you show me that? Yeah, that's a private, mate.
Yeah,
it's like I had people like Tad Parker taught me how to side roll. Used to stay behind for like 20 minutes after training on a Friday night at stupid o'clock at night because I couldn't sideways roll and I was sick of not being able to do it and looking like an idiot. Do you know what I mean? Like Luke Taylor taught me loads about wrestling, head and arm chokes, things like that. I've learned so much from Rich, but this is all going along as you go. Little, 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, and that's why I'm not a big fan of the privates culture. I think privates should be reserved for people who have won stuff, done stuff, and are competent.
Yeah, it's interesting to say that. Because I think even to the point now, I'd say within some people speaking to them about privates, that they end up chatting more within the privates with that individual rather than actually going over technique. And then likewise, obviously from a teaching point of view, you kind of need two people there so that then when they are teaching it, they can then obviously view what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a tricky one because I think I touched on it earlier that some people that may not necessarily have all the competition medals, may not necessarily have like all the experience, but are very good at teaching.
Look at John Danaher.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? John Danaher is an example of that. I think you're always going to get a yeah, but. There's always going to be a yeah, but. So, for example, I'm not a big fan of blue and purple belts running gyms.
Yep.
I think you should be still a student at that level. However, someone like is it Carson from RGA? He's full time.
Yeah.
He's
in California right now.
Exactly. Someone like that. He is the yeah, but. He's the exception that proves the rule. But I just think, in general, people are like in a big rush to become a teacher, to become to run privates, and it's like, hang on, mate, you've just got a default silver at the Bristol Open. Like you can't go around and say, oh, I'm offering privates now.
It's the same thing I said to you, obviously, within the industry that I'm in, and this is prior to being purely more jiu-jitsu focused, is that someone would lose 10 kilograms, 5 kilograms, right, over the infamous time, for example, and go, right, I'm on online coach now, who's helped over 1,000 people. And I'm like, well, how have you done this in the space of a week?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, it makes no sense. It still bugs me to this day when people over-egg their results.
100%, mate.
It'll be like, we've helped thousands of people with this gym, and they've been running for like 300, like a year.
Yeah.
So you've done 3 transformations a day, right? Where are these pictures then? So I've only seen like one every 4 weeks. Right
Precisely.
Now. Like, what's going on? Like,
I don't know. I just feel like there needs to be a little bit more humility in the game. So like myself and obviously I mentioned Gary Hewson before. Like shout out to Gary. Like Gary's a checkmate black belt now. Got his black belt a few weeks ago. Yes. But me and Gary, when we were both brown belts, and we remember both of us just sitting there on the mat, and we're like, are we the only 2 brown belts in Bristol that are just interested in training? Like we're not trying to make a side hustle of like technique. And if someone comes up to me and says, can you show me a bow and bowler? I'll be like, no. Do you know what I mean? I'll be like, absolutely not. Someone comes up to me and says, can you show me an omoplata? Or can you show me a north-south choke? I'll be like, yeah, because I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've picked up like from Rich. Rich is uber like humble with stuff like that. Someone goes up to him and says, he's done it before. He said, I don't use this technique a lot. but Crocs does if you want to ask him afterwards. You know,
He-
I don't
he
use
brought
this.
that up on his
Yeah,
one
I don't
Jiu-jitsu
use this
stuff.
technique a lot, but Mark does. So if you want to ask any questions, go and ask Mark.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's missing. You've got people at the moment, like with my little Freudian slip earlier, that like, you know, oh yeah, I can't believe how completed it, mate.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to open my own franchise gym. It's like,
It's the same with Peds and Tom. Peds will say, I don't do this, but I'm going to teach you what I know and the way that I do it. And Tom's exactly the same. He'll say,
Yeah.
this isn't my game, but I will show you how Peds has taught me, and then what I do to do the same thing. Same thing. When I've been to Emily's class as well, we did waiter guard, and I was like, what the fuck is this? But like, I was like, oh man, this is fucking actually pretty solid. Like, it was like waiter guard to modified X.
yeah,
And then come up. And she went, Ped scores this, definite 2 points, or taking out the trash. And I was like,
get the trash out, yeah. Get the trash out, sweet, yeah.
It's insane.
But there's things that, like, for you know, and it's about having that awareness of your own ability.
Yeah.
Like I am a white belt in berimbolo, funnily enough.
What?
Yeah, I know. It's like shocking, isn't it?
I was about
you
to
know,
say, getting private from you
exactly,
later. What's that all
mate.
about?
Exactly. You know, I'm a white belt in like armbar from guard. I can show you a perfect armbar from close guard. Can I hit it live? No. You know, like you know, triangles. I know how to do a triangle, but I've got quite shorter legs.
You are Mr. Omoplata.
Exactly. But the reason I started doing omoplatas is because I was like, oh, well, I can't do that one, but maybe I can do this. And I feel like I've spent so much time on my own game that I haven't had time to think about teaching privates.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think from my perspective as well is that if I don't know something, right, I'm happy to say, can I get back to you?
100%.
Yeah,
100%, mate.
I don't know, if I have someone who has a very specific condition which is just completely out of my realm. So actually we had an inquiry probably a couple of months ago all about gut health, but it also believes that the gut health deteriorated due to a incorrect paint formula that was being put around the house.
Blimey.
And then since had serious fatigue, headaches, all this type of stuff. I said, look, I appreciate you sharing this all with me. I'm not the person for you for
No,
this.
and that's exactly
I was
that.
like, I could easily be there like, cool, pay me, absolutely fine, we'll see what we can do. And I can suggest some things now for free to go and try first and come back to me in a couple of weeks' time. It might fix it if not, but I'm going to have to
I had an
suggest.
individual say to me before, would you do some privates? And I was like, no. I said, not when I've got Mark Hibbard and Rich Rubino sat on the same mat as me. You know, and the same down at Sweatbox with someone like Tom Showler. Like, you know, if someone's full time, there's no way I'm going to be like, yeah, I'll take a bit of their business when I know I can't do as good a job.
Yeah,
it's
one of these things. I appreciate people buy from people, and if there's certain things, obviously they want to drill. At the end of the day, I think you're very much cut from the same cloth. That if someone wants to learn how to perfect their omoplata all of a sudden, I don't think you'd even charge. You'd be like, right,
no, I just show them, yeah.
I'm here on the mat. I'm going to be down here on Sunday. Come along if you want to, and then
Exactly.
that's absolutely fine. And I think the difference being is that some people with any industry, I think, is the fact that they think they can make a quick buck from stuff.
But when it comes to like you know, tutoring, teaching,
Yep.
someone said to me, can you tutor my 15-year-old with their GCSEs? I'll be like, yeah, saying 50 quid an hour.
Yep.
Because I'm a black belt in teaching.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, do you know what I mean? And I know where my expertise were. If someone said, oh, can you tutor me through my maths GCSE, which I've done before for someone from the gym, I'd be like, yeah, fine, not a drama. Science? No. Because it's about knowing, I think, where your sort of limits are.
Yeah, your limits are, exactly. And so it's again, you've got to be prepared, and I think it's a level of responsibility that you have to deal with it. I can't deal with eating disorders, right? That has to go to a dietitian, right? And however much I know there is very much a bit of a barrier with the NHS in terms of it, and people were saying, I have to advise them, you have to be persistent in contacting them, going through the certain sort of barriers, loopholes to keep on pushing forward to then speak to a dietitian, obviously, about an eating disorder type of thing. I'm not here, I can't diagnose you, I can't undiagnose you. But if that's what you're looking to overcome, I'm not the person to come to.
Yeah, you almost need a referral, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And so, again, it's having limitations to it in terms of obviously, and being, not say careful about it. And I appreciate that some people will be starting up with this, and this is not to deter anyone obviously wanting to make a business out of stuff like this. And I appreciate some people have to start from scratch,
Oh,
right?
God, yeah.
But at the same time, it starts from the point of saying, right, okay, I'm going to do an open mat on Sunday. I'm going to be staying around afterwards. Everyone wants to come along and learn the omoplata, right?
You build your client base, don't you? The same as a PT does. You build your client base.
Exactly.
I get that.
And you start off and you build it up from there, and then you get referrals, and then you kind of say, right, is this the thing for me, right? Am I teaching something?
I see people at the moment, like, you know, someone who I won't name who I saw on Instagram yesterday. I've never met them actually, they're not from Bristol. But like they've been, you know, training like a couple of years.
Yeah.
And like you said, they've lost 10 kilos and they're offering diet plans. You know, they've won a couple of things at I think blue belt and they're offering privates.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, you're not if you're winning local comps, it doesn't mean all of a sudden you're like, yeah, completed it, I'll offer some privates. It's just not. I think you just need to focus on your own game before.
I know from my point, we're trying to, because again, legally, right, anyone can label themselves as a nutritionist, right?
Yeah.
You can call yourself a nutritionist. It's not a protected name. Dietitian is, doctor is, and other things like this, right? And even then, doctor can be very misconstruing because obviously you could
Anyone can be a doctor in anything.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, I've got a doctorate in engineering, right?
Yeah,
and it's just like, okay, doesn't necessarily mean he can medically diagnose you or
precisely.
something, and so it can obviously be misleading from there. But it suggests again there just needs to be more regulation. And kind of my point I said to a few people who run clubs and stuff like that is that there is no support for dieting, nutrition, and structure. It's based on what they know, right? What they have been taught by someone else, or what they've kind of picked up from other things. There's no like, here's a course, go do it type thing.
And that was the big thing for me, that when I first started like dropping a little bit of weight when I started, because as much as people, love to take the mick and be like, oh, you're still massive, Crocs and that, compared to where I was when I started jiu-jitsu, but I'm like 15 kilos lighter. And particularly after the Portugal incident, which I think Tom has probably alluded to already. But yeah, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And it's like, I had a very, very sort of like disjointed upbringing. So like didn't grow up with my dad at all. Very poor relationship with my mother, who I've not spoken to for 21 years. So I was brought up by my granddad, which meant I got brought up on white bread and stew.
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you don't know what you don't know, and it's that sort of like will it fry was sort of like the extent of the old boy, God rest him, the old boy's sort of knowledge of nutrition.
So where did you pick up your information from? Was it just in the internet, speaking to other people?
Yeah, just like being around people and sort of learning that you can't smash a full English in every day and expect to drop weight, but you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I like my food, but I like my fizz as well, and it's something that I've learned. So a big struggle for me on the coronation was not being able to train because I was so knackered, but having to bang the calories in, even though I was doing 900 calories of exercise a day without getting out of breath because of all the marching.
Yeah.
So 20,000 steps a day with the rifle, and that mentally was a bit of a struggle for me. And there was like one of the girls who I outranked. I had to give her a little bit of a briefing. Actually, I had to grip her. I noticed she wasn't eating properly because in her head she was like, "Oh, I can't eat all this because I'm not doing any fizz." And it's like, if you don't get the calories in you, you are going to go face first, man down, right in the middle of London. So like, but if I'd have gone and done that event 10 years ago, I'd have been in bits. I wouldn't have a clue what I was doing.
Really?
Yeah, I wouldn't have a clue what I was doing. And I think you pick things up through other people, seeing people do different things, like seeing like the idea of meal prep, the idea of like, that was something that I just don't think really existed 10 years ago, unless you were a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
The idea of someone coming into work with 5 Tupperwares.
And that's the concern I have at the moment. There's nothing you're doing wrong in the slightest bit, or from my experience is very, very common, is that different sports are picking up ways of nutrition advice from other sports that have been doing it for a lot more longer. So the bodybuilding was a prime example of this.
Yeah.
What did Dorian do? And I'm like,
But that
Dorian did this.
But that's not your goal.
That's not your goal.
Funnily enough, I was listening to the is it the Charles Yogan podcast with Ogan and Flanagan?
Yeah.
I find that's quite a good one to listen to while I'm in the gym doing weights. It's not because I'm a complete idiot, and if I put music on, I start smashing myself when I'm trying to do proper form and that. So I just have a podcast on in the background, and they were talking about, is it the beta alanine stuff?
Yes.
And they were talking on that about how it's really good for recovery from weights, but probably not that great for recovery from jiu-jitsu. So the jury's kind of still out on whether or not it's right for a jiu-jitsu athlete to use. Like the fact that I'm even having this conversation, I'm like, you just hear this stuff and it goes in and you see what other people do and what works. But I think the important thing is that what works for some people doesn't work for others.
No, not at all. It's a very much, and again, big concern, obviously, which you see is obviously the generic diet plan that gets chucked out. It's worked for me to do that, or someone even charging for it is obviously just cookie cutter stuff. And it's the idea of that people get really, I would say, a little bit alienated when I talk about this. I said, look, first week or 4 to 10 days when working with me, for example, I like to build a blueprint. I want to see what you're naturally doing every single day. And I say to people, you do you, boo, right?
Yeah.
Don't care. I want you, and I say it specifically, I don't want you to be on a clean eating kick.
No, because
I want to see the bad and the ugly stuff, right? And so I can see what you're going to do on a normal day-to-day basis, and then I can give you some really valuable information to say, right, you're eating absolutely no protein in your breakfast right now, and you're coming up massively short, right? Can we just add in something there quickly, obviously, to do that? Now, that bit of information is way more valuable than me just say, follow this, that's why you lost weight.
Yeah.
Because you then walk away learning something about yourself, right? And that's where, again, it's trying to make it tailored, personalised, and stuff like that. Now, don't get me wrong, competition week's a bit different because we're
Yeah.
taking out variables. Yeah, we're just going to go, right, we're going to do this. It's like planning, obviously, the King's coronation. How are we going to feed everyone?
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
exactly.
we're just going to do this, this, and this, and it means that we're going to have X amount of calories. We're going to have this in there. They should all be absolutely fine. Yeah. But on the lead up to it, they weren't probably telling you what to eat and what to do. I'm not sure.
No, and do you know what? It all got passed out. So it's funny you should say that, like things you hear. I texted a mate of mine that I did my drill instructor's course with, who's in the guards.
Yeah.
And I was like, what have I got to do so I don't spank him face first on the mouth? Because I like giving a bit of chat out.
Yeah.
Right? And in my ads course, I've been giving chat out to everyone on the rehearsals. You know, a couple of the regular soldiers who screwed bits up, and I'm there giving them chat, like, I thought you did this full time and all that, you know. And little bits of that. And I thought, I can't go man down. I was like, if I spank it in on the coronation in front of 10 million people, probably more than that. So I'll never at the end of it.
You probably would have gone viral.
Yeah, exactly. Some big lad just going in head first. So I texted a mate of mine in the guards, and he was like, start chucking salt on your food for a week before. Just salt load. He's like, you need to salt load and not lock your legs. And it's these little things that get passed down to stop the blood pooling and that. And, you know, hydrate, but you can't hydrate too much because then you need a wee for the entire parade. But he's been in the guards 15 years.
Yeah.
So he does this is his full-time job. But again, no one took us to one side and went, I'll do this. It was a little bit sort of amateur-y. And that's what it's like in BJJ. People say, oh, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Have you tried the other? Not knowing if that works for you.
No, exactly. So when you went through the belt ranks and stuff, obviously, was the weight slowly coming down naturally?
Yeah, pretty much. I think I was probably about 120 when I started. That came down probably to about one. I think when I went through my phase of terrorising sort of like chubby white belts in Newquay, that was about 117 kilos, I reckon, and then it sort of gradually crept down from there. But I was still playing a lot of rugby, so I was still in the sort of like 10 points of Guinness culture on a Saturday night. And I think where I've levelled out between that sort of 108, 112 bracket, that depending on how sort of good a weekend I have, that's been from training jiu-jitsu, and also jiu-jitsu keeps you honest. You can turn up and play a game of rugby and lurk around in the backfield of a hangover.
Yep.
I cannot walk in.
No, I've said this
with those lunatics on a Sunday morning with a hangover. No. Do you know what I mean?
It's worse enough, like I said, being hungover as it is, and then obviously having to deal with that on top of it.
It's bad enough being in like Hibbard's homemade washing machine anyway. You know, you start rolling with him and you start going around in circles. It's bad enough being in that anyway. Doing that with a hangover,
no chance.
Absolutely not. So I think that's been a difference jiu-jitsu's made. It's kind of like, you know, kept me honest and made me go, actually, do I really want to have this pizza tonight because I've got training tomorrow morning? I'm going to spend the whole round burping up, you know, little bits of pepperoni. And then I sort of hurt my knee in the gym, and then went on holiday to Portugal the same week, which I think is one of Tom's questions that you put in, isn't it? And I came back and I was 126 kilos. Jesus. Because I literally spent the entire holiday. My missus still rags me about it. Me and her brother were like, I just went up, like, you know, you have like, oh, I've hurt my knee, can't do jiu-jitsu, I can't do anything. So I'm going to sit on the beach and just be depressed. So I was just like filling my face with like Cocoa Pops, chocolate milk and beer for like 2 weeks. and then I came back, walked to the gym, my knee was better, and Pedro just went, oh man. Like that was the reaction. I was like, oh right, okay. So that was the Portugal incident. So yeah, and then funnily enough, that was about the same time that the Abu Dhabi weight limit came in.
Okay.
And I was like, right, I need to get down to 110 because I want to compete at that. So really like 108 to obviously get the gi on.
Okay.
And that was literally, there was no science in that, Jay. That was just thrashing myself and not eating very much.
Yeah.
Which I think is where the science has now gone, isn't it? You're trying to get people down to a weight. And this is what Hibbard said to me when he did. I think you coached him for Grapple Fest, didn't you?
Yes.
And he said, look, you got him down to that weight, but he didn't feel like he was on a diet. And I think that's where the science and the art comes in.
Yeah, it's about balancing it out.
Because it is hard, especially working in school. People, you know, like literally, we used to have Cake Wednesday, right? And it got to the point where it was like, it actually made me feel sick. We had Ofsted in, right? This is ridiculous. We had Ofsted in on the Thursday and Friday, right?
Yeah.
So Wednesday night they got Domino's in for people that were staying late to plan. Thursday morning they had bacon rolls, right? Thursday afternoon they had sausage rolls in the canteen for people to keep people like going, right? Yeah. They had cake as well on one of the days, and then we went in on Friday morning. It was a Wednesday and a Thursday because we had Cake Wednesday. And on a Friday morning we went into the hall. And they were like, oh, we've done really well on Ofsted. Here's a big tray of bacon rolls. It was making me feel ill. I like my food, mate. And I was just watching, like, you know, people that look like a minibus with a face, just hungry hippoing, people who just live very sedentary lifestyles, just like smashing in calories. And that was the point where I stopped eating cake at work.
It reminds you of the phrase, like, it's not you've got a slow metabolism, you've got over fast hands.
Oh, literally. And don't get me wrong, mate. You know, I love my food, but I was just like, what are you people doing? You don't do anything.
Yeah.
Do you know, and I think that's the real thing. Like, again, we can get onto this later. The whole jiu-jitsu for everyone. I don't believe that. I don't think it is for everyone. I think it can be for everyone, but I don't think it is for everyone because actually, I think you use a certain mentality.
You do.
You know, and I think also there are a lot of people outside of jiu-jitsu that are quite happy to just go to work, come home, sit on the sofa, do nothing.
Yeah.
And I always get people saying to me at work, like, "Oh, how does your missus cope with you being out all the time? You know, being away with the army, going training and stuff." And I went, "Hang on. Every time I'm out of that house, I'm doing something positive. I'm either off with the army, which I earn for, so that's extra money for us, you know, especially with the way my 2 kids eat. And then I don't know where they get that from, mate. Not a clue. Do you know what I mean? That's her genetics, that is. And then you know, and if I'm training, like I trained this morning, you know, I trained last night after went to the circuit after the kids had gone to bed. So you can balance things around your family life. I think there's a lot of people in like the sort of the public world that use family as an excuse not to train. You know, and I think that's quite sad. But especially within schools, like cake everywhere and that. And it was just, you know, it was about me making choices and being able to try and get that weight off. So yeah.
Did you, as your weight was coming down at all, obviously, because the ultra bracket, you were obviously come down from that 120 mark, obviously coming down to 110. Was there, again, this could be a flat out no, was there any point of going, actually, I wonder if I can go in super heavy?
Yeah, but then I just didn't. Because I think what would happen is it'd be the old classic, like you'd get down to a certain weight, win a comp, and then go and have a bit of a blowout, and then be like, right, let's start again. And I have wanted to go super, like I have over the years, but it's just not something I've ever sort of gone for. No. I've just never sort of pulled the trigger on it, if I'm being absolutely honest. Like, we can chat about that offline if you want, but I've never, it's just something I've never really thought about doing.
Is there a Newquay Open anymore?
Say again?
Is there a Newquay Open anymore?
Oh, no, not anymore. No, not anymore. It stopped when I got my purple belt. I just used to love it. Drive down to the coast and...
Well, we're off there tomorrow, actually.
Are you actually? Yeah, fair one.
So, but, I was about to say, we'll get you back in there, like the return.
The return of the king, yeah. I've got a photo of me sat in a Burger King with a crown on, with a load of Newquay gold medals on. Like, literally, it's awful. Oh, honestly, it was awful. That was when another good Tom Shadler story when we went into a Burger King, and obviously he's quite a devout Christian, so I won't mind me saying it, but he doesn't eat pork. He's quite rigid with it.
I didn't know that.
So he's ordered this like cheeseburger that I think had bacon, like a bacon double or something, and he went, "Oh, I don't want any bacon on it." And then he's gone into the bathroom and he's come out and he's just got me there like Brecon pointing the bloke over the thing. I was like, "My mate don't want any bacon in that for religious reasons," and the bloke's like that. And I was like, don't even think about picking it out. You know, Tom said he just came out of the toilet and was like, "What is going on?" I'm there with like Burger King crown on and 2 gold medals, just like gripping this guy.
Gi on still, yeah.
but that was
Just a rash guy.
But that was the big thing between like competing at purple belt and then competing at brown. There's no one competes at brown unless they're good.
Yeah.
Like I've not done well at brown belt in terms of my standards.
Yeah.
So brown belt, I've mainly competed in the sort of combined services competitions. And sort of like...
Did you do the one recently? So
I didn't do the one recently because it was the same weekend as... There was something else on. It was the same weekend as something else.
Yeah.
And I think also, if I'd have gone away again after being away for the best part of 3 weeks, I probably would have come home and found all my stuff in a box on the doorstep. So I had to screw the nut there a little bit.
Yeah.
And also, I'd done no training. And this was the other thing. I came back off of, because I basically put myself on a sparring ban for 10 days before the coronation because I didn't want to get hurt.
Yep.
Couldn't turn up with a black eye and be like, "Oh yeah, I want to go on, march in front of the king," right?
Blowing up the ears.
Exactly. And I also didn't want to get hurt. I didn't want to have any niggles. I wanted to go in fresh. So I basically didn't spar for sort of 4 or 5 weeks.
Wow.
And when I went back, all my sharpness was gone.
Wow.
I wasn't anticipating moves.
Yeah.
I wasn't. And then the week after, Hibbard said to me, he's like, "Oh, you've woken up now, aren't you?" He's like, "Last week you were just, getting out your sleeping bag because you just don't." And this is where I don't know how people only train like once or 2 weeks or once a week. Like, no wonder you're not progressing. And it was only when it happened to me that I sort of realised that I was like, right, this is why people progress quicker.
Yeah, that's the point of experience, you know what I mean? In terms of that, again, not to sound cliche with this, the failures in ourselves that we have give us the better sort of life knowledge rather than having everything perfect all the time. And I think having those moments makes you really sort of realise about it. And so, again, for me, obviously, I'm injured with my ankle at the moment, which is obviously just frustrating to say the least. And I've got enough things to get my mind off of it for the time being. But in my head, I'm like, right, you've seen this with clients already. They come back too soon from injury.
Yeah.
They then get re-injured again. And I'm like, right, okay, fine. Let this settle. You've got other things to work on. And then I've got my mind set on a competition, obviously, in September type of thing, which we're at the club, we're doing like a 12-week training camp, basically.
Yeah.
For it, which I'm like, wicked, all for that. So I'm like, look, that doesn't start for another few more weeks' time. get the ankle up to where it needs to be, so you don't have to worry about even just little shudders here and there, and then crack on with it type thing.
Yeah, and that was a big sort of wake up call for me. Is that brown belt? There's no one left at brown belt that isn't any good. Everyone's either fallen by the wayside or doesn't compete anymore.
Yeah.
And the army comp, I ran into the quite sizable form of Josh Gibbs, who, like, fair play to him. He's good. He got, I think he got gold and a bronze maybe at the Euros this year in adult.
Yeah.
Like one adult brown belt, ultra heavy. You know, the guy's an absolute animal, and fair play to him. He's a lovely bloke as well.
Yeah.
You know, but it was then I sort of like gripped up with him, and I was like, okay, this is going to be our day at the office. And he threw me that hard. I had to check to make sure everything was still working. I had to give my fingers a little wiggle. I hit the floor. Honestly, I hit the floor that hard. I think he got me an outside trip. And I'm not a weak bloke, you know. And I was like, I feel like a child here. And that was when I sort of realised that there are levels to this. And this is where, going back to that humility, like, I feel like with the guys that I train with and the guys that I have trained with in the past, I've trained with some of the best people in the UK as a hobbyist. What other sport can you do that in? You know, like, I've been to California, trained with guys from California, you know, some really, really good guys. You can't do that in any other sport. You can't just get on the park with, like, Lionel Messi for a kick around, can you?
No.
You know, and you sort of realise there's levels to this, and there's levels within levels. So, yeah, all right, you might be winning in your club at Purple Belt, and you might be winning, like, the local open, but don't mug yourself off that you're some amazing competitor. And that's the thing, going back to people then going, oh, I've won this, I'm going to offer a private. It's like, whoa, go and compete at, like, the high level. So, you know, I was on the mat with a guy who's just, like, I think he's won the British, the combined services, the army comp, and the Euros. And he's probably going to smash the Worlds as well. I think he's going to this week.
Nice.
You know, that for me told me where my level was.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I'm happy with that. I'm all right with that. I'm 36 with 2 kids.
It's nice to fact. I think you've understanding of it being a hobbyist sport, which is good. And I think it's on the flip side of what you mentioned there. For the more full-time competitor who will be training 3 times a day, that type of stuff, they shouldn't really be wasting their time with local comps.
No, not at all.
Don't get me wrong, tune-ups, that type of thing, I get it, like a little warm-ups. Obviously, I know a few people obviously competed at the British, was it last week or the week before? Ready for Worlds. Come up, and I can see that logic
100%.
to kind of work on that, which is absolutely fine. Get some of that ring rust out of there, whatever you want to call it. But if you're up and coming and you're doing well and you're going on the big sub-only comps and stuff like this, you smashing the local North Somerset Open, right, is of no benefit to in your game. You have more risk of potentially getting injury. Yeah, you have more chance of obviously people actually having a bigger target on your back, I'd say, as well, thinking, oh, you're the guy who gets all the invite, I'm going to try and screw you over.
Yeah, 100%.
And all of a sudden they're going to rip on, I don't know, toe hold or something like that. And it's not going to be the case of you say, tap, that's it, let go.
Yeah, right? Someone who wants to put, this is why you get a lot of celebrities do one-to-ones, don't they? Because they don't want to, they don't want to go in the gym and someone just comes in and tries to be the mat enforcer.
I hate seeing Tom Hardy's shoes, like, oh, I'm going to go and beat Bane.
Well, yeah, precisely.
It's
but going back to what we were saying about ultra heavyweight is a weird weight division.
Yeah.
It's a weird weight division.
You were talking about it earlier about in terms of, like, for me, obviously I'm in, no, I'm not super heavy. I'm one below that. Is it heavy?
Heavy, yeah.
Heavy. So no, I'm under 97. So I'm not in. I don't know.
That's super, isn't it?
Depends.
Depends no gi or gi.
Gi or no gi?
No gi most of the time.
No gi would.
I'm one below ultra then, aren't I?
Yeah, super heavy. Yeah.
Yeah. So
you'll be a super heavy. Yeah.
Yeah, basically. So super heavy, and so for me, I'm like, right, I do not want to be just this overweight guy who just can't be bothered with anything. I want to be athletic at that level.
Oh, mate, you can swear. I just can't.
Sorry. I try to be polite then.
Do you know what I mean?
I want to say this. I don't want to be the fat fuck, basically, at that level, right? I want to be an athletic guy. I want to be there. I want to be as nimble and as speedy as possible type thing. And I get inspired by Nicky Rod. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the sense of, like, athleticism, wrestler, we're going to go for it. I do not care. And I think when my previous experience of doing CrossFit and other things, right? I've got high repetitions in my head pretty much drilled in the sense of, oh, one failed takedown, here's another 10.
Precisely, and it's about having that, like, you know, like that mentality of being able to get back. Like, I didn't want to go training this morning. I got out of bed and I was like, oh. You know, I go in that gym sometimes, and especially when we do like a black and brown belt open mat on a Sunday morning. I go in there and I'm like, I'm going to win one round here tops. Yeah. But I'm going to get more from that. Yeah, than going, you know, maybe to a smaller club. Yep. And getting and winning every round and walking out being like,
I don't get as much satisfaction. Like I said, I'm not sounding too big headed here. Obviously, again, I'm only a blue belt and that type of stuff. But I'll happily roll with obviously white belts and stuff like that, or people who aren't experienced in that type of thing. And I'll enjoy it up to the point of where the second sub kicks in, and I've got another move which I've been working type of thing. Past that point, I'm just like, I'm not gaining as much from it, and I'll purposely put myself in shitty
Exactly
positions to
that.
try and work on
You know,
it,
there's no point me side controlling a white belt for 6 minutes. Like I rolled with a couple of white belts at the open mount on Sunday, and I was doing, funnily enough, armbar from close guard because I'm awful at it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like I've been messing around with a crucifix a bit lately.
Yeah.
You know, which has upset a lot of people. I've been doing that. You know, that Barrett Yoshida assassin joke.
No, I think you tried to do that to me last time I rolled with you. And
Have I done it to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's horrendous. Just end up like wrapping a belt around someone's neck. It's hilarious. Just amazing how upset people get. And then there's wrist locks available. Oh, there's all sorts. But
There's element, isn't
yeah,
it?
it's more like literally just for banter.
I just literally thought next competition you need to do the dodgeball come out like.
It's
like
like,
just for wrist
like
locks.
Why is that the second time we brought that up on the podcast?
I don't know.
With Elite as well.
It's,
about rash guards and they were
coming out as a club. That was it.
It's genuinely like more for banter than the fact I'm ever going to do it in a comp. But I'm not going to go and do that to like some 50-kilo female on a Sunday. That's pointless. And it's about like maximising your training. There's times where you need to just use your A game, but there's times where actually you need to work on things.
Yep.
And again, Gary Hewson, obviously check my black belt now. He's awesome at that. He's absolutely awesome at that. He'll come in and he's been trying like a little hip sweep from close guard, and was getting filled in for quite a while with it because me and him are like that pass. You know, now it's a legitimate threat, and that's how you get better. If you're trying to win all the time in the gym, you're not doing it right. Yeah. And that was something that it took me until brown belt to realise.
Really?
Yeah, 100%. I got to brown belt and I suddenly sort of took stock, and I was like, my leg locks are poor, my back control is poor, and that's sort of where I've gone into this like weird crucifix segue from. You know, my arm bars are poor.
Yeah.
And all I've been doing the last few weeks is armbar from mount, because obviously with Rich and RR moving to a new facility, it sort of dawned on me that like I'm going to be like the number 3 guy in the gym essentially, and I need some credibility. If someone comes in and just sees me like side controlling a white belt for 6 minutes because I can't do anything else. You know, I need that credibility that, oh look, you know, so and so is a big lad, but he's doing the basics. Yeah. And that's another one of my pet hates when people are like, oh yeah, you beat me because you're big. It's like, hang on, mate, I just swept you from my close guard.
Yeah. I still feel bad. Obviously, I went and rolled obviously with Paddy on Sunday, and roll was absolutely fine because I was blessed the fact my ankle held up for it and everything. And I think there's one point on the third roll that we did where I hated it. It just basically bench pressed his hips up.
Yeah.
And I went into single leg X, obviously shock of all things. And I was like, oh, mate, sorry, didn't mean to do that. And I fucking hated it, every single second of it, because I was like, I didn't use enough technique
That's
for
true.
it.
But then at the same time, are you gonna turn off his speed?
No. So
you know,
it's a hard thing to try not to do. So I try my best, obviously, again, not to use strength all the time.
And that's a big thing for big guys. And that's why, and again, this is my personal opinion. I know other people disagree on it. I think big guys should train in the gi. I think for bigger guys, that you see a lot of it with the sort of MMA BJJ crossover. When you get MMA guys who come in to practice their grappling, and particularly some of the bigger guys that have never put the gi on, a lot of their escapes will be like, you know, rah, getting that stuff, and it teaches bad habits, because no gi, when you're a bit sweaty, you can get out of it.
Yep.
And I think in the gi, the friction, it makes you get that underhook properly. It makes you come up on that single leg properly. And you know, I'm not one of these guys that's like, oh, to do no gi, you have to do gi. I don't think that's true. But if you look at,
I bet Rich is going to disagree with you.
No, but I don't disagree. I just think everyone should do a bit. And if you look at what Danaher does, and this is the bit that's not spoken about that much, from what I've heard, Danaher, his white belts all have to do gi.
Really?
You can't. From what I've heard, you can't just go in and do no gi.
Really, that's interesting.
And I think that for the fundamentals of getting an underhook. Don't get me wrong, you know, is doing Della Worm Guard gonna be something that, you know, I do a bit of worm, I think it's funny, but you know, is doing Della Worm Guard gonna be something that's gonna benefit you in an MMA match? No. But is you know, learning to escape out of that, you know, getting that single leg or getting that underhook, and someone's giving your collar that, so you've got to do a bit more, and then you find it all the more easier no-gi. And I've rolled with MMA fighters before, and it's like you see them run out of ideas very quickly when the power game doesn't work. Yeah. And I think that's where the gi is quite valuable. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think it's one of those where you necessarily should train in the gi alongside no-gi to be amazing at no-gi, but I think everyone needs a foundation in the gi. And the mats are littered at the moment with blue belts who know loads of leg locks but can't pass guard.
Ooh, that's an interesting thing.
You know, there's people out there, you know, there's individuals out there that I could name, but I won't because I'm not horrible, who haven't got any jiu-jitsu apart from, unless it is related to that heel hooking system. So, you know, someone might come up in single leg X, you strip that leg, you pass, they got nothing. You know, they go into one of the sort of ashy positions, and this is someone else. I'm not a leg locker, but I put some time in with, do you know Ollie Shun?
Ollie.
Ollie Shearn.
Yeah.
So I put some time in with Ollie Shearn just to learn it.
It was like Owen and Flanagan's seminar.
Yeah. So I put some time with Ollie to learn it, so that I knew what I was doing roughly. So if someone got me in it, I could get out, so that I could threaten it to get out of positions.
Yep.
But to build a foundation, if you can't pass guard and you can't sweep, how, you know,
What else you do?
but you can invert into a sort of like, you know, single leg ashi. Like, what's the point?
It's interesting. So I think there's two sides to it. Now, again, you've got probably wrestling camp.
Yeah.
Where people are like, wrestling is just the thing you need to do, and you'll
Yeah,
be able to
yeah.
get very far. And you know, unfortunately, obviously, you see the rise, obviously, of like Nicky Rod and that type of people who are that caliber of wrestling and have got very far with it in a short amount of time, which is good. Then you've got the leg lock crew, basically, who are like, right, okay, fine. And it only dawned on me the other day was that once you start, I imagine, learning the defenses, obviously, for leg locks and even potentially putting yourself in better positions, that where do these people then go to next type
But
of thing?
look at the elite level, like Kanan at ADCC with Craig James. Craig James, elite level leg locker, got absolutely smushed. And yeah, there was the issue with the penalties and everything else, but he got absolutely smushed with it. But yeah, ultras are a very weird weight class. Like you've got your three types of ultras. Do you know what I mean? You've got big guys like Josh Gibbs or Hibbard if he's over 100 kilos. You've got guys like that, right?
Yep.
You've got really big fat blokes who are 135, 140 kilos that if they land on you, you're in trouble, you know? And then you've got like me and Matty Hudd. like in the middle, do you know what I mean? Like just like, you know.
does train but likes pizza.
Literally, like, you know, you got fridge with a gas tank. Like, you know, that's literally it. So ultra's a really weird weight class. Like I've had it before where I've sparred guys that I've just grabbed their collar and just hung off it until they've got tired and then basically pushed them over. And then I've run in.
Homer Simpson.
Yeah, exactly. And then I've run into guys that are just absolute athletes.
Yeah.
And that's where you need a bit of technique. And I think that's where as like bigger guys, you need to challenge yourself to learn techniques. And even if you're not, I'm not going to, again, Berimbolo, I'm not going to use it.
No.
But I need to know it so that when someone starts doing that, I'm like, whoa, what are you doing there, boy?
It's the same thing again. Like I have to purposely, like I started again, and some people absolutely hate this in terms of my own training, like sitting in guard like a no-gi, just so we can get myself in a position which I'm not just gonna take them down, go on top, and start doing that.
I'm always big. And this is something that positivity that I did take from rugby. That, you know, you talk about rugby, you say if you've got an amazing back line, you have to earn the right to go wide. Your forwards have to earn the right to send that ball out to your winger. I think there's a big guy in jiu-jitsu, you've got to earn the right to go on top. And you know, you see it all the time, like sparring sessions. You get some big bloke who's like sort of squatting down, slaps hands and pushes the other bloke over, you know. And it's like, I've done that before to mates of mine because it's funny. But when you see people doing that, it's like, oh, so that's how you're starting the round, is it? Okay, you know. And it's, what are you learning from that?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. No. You know.
That's interesting. Okay, cool. Obviously, in terms then of you competing and stuff, has it been any preference over gi or no gi at all? Or?
Both. So I've done two sub only matches. One on both. I did one gi, one no gi.
Yeah.
I've sort of come to realise over the years, I think it depends who I'm sparring.
Yeah.
I haven't really got a preference, but there's some people, like obviously, like MMA fighter, I want them in the gi.
You want that advantage.
Like, do you know what I mean? You want that advantage, but it's more the people. Like, it's more the people I'm sparring. Someone more athletic, ideally, I'd want them in the gi.
Yeah.
Because just to be able to negate that.
This is just my argument with the gi. I'm not saying I'm anti in the sense is that there's certain grips, like let's take a pan grip, right? You get that bottom of the pan all of a sudden and hold it, you've basically got a leash. Right?
Yeah, very true.
There, right, and they can keep running around, absolutely fine, no problem, but you've got a hell of a lot of control all of a sudden, and that obviously would suit the over athletic.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the important thing to realise is that the gi game, you can take everything to its nth degree. You know, like the gi game is a sport. And I think this is where that people need to be intelligent with roles. If I was sat open man, someone come up to me and said, look mate, I'm an MMA fighter, I'm a blue belt, I've got the gi on because I just want to like practice my escapes and make sure I can escape properly. I'm not going to be like, cheers mate, and then chuck them in spider guard. that's not, do you know what I mean? That's about being a good training partner as well.
Yeah.
You know, if someone came in and said, oh, you know, I want to practice my worm guard. I just want to put you in it. I want you to try and pass because, you know, you're a big lad. I'd be like, yeah, same, not a problem. It's about being a good training partner, and it's having that sort of two-way conversation. Like, why are we training today? Are we training because we want to just fill each other in and get a good workout? Are we training because you've got the Worlds next week? Like, my jiu-jitsu isn't a patch on Rich's, but I remember when he did the Euros, and he might have done all right in it. Did he mention it?
Yeah.
I think he might have mentioned it. I think he might have got a medal or something. You know, one of maybe he might have got gold. I don't know. Yeah. But like I remember back, I think I was a blue belt and he was a purple belt, And I remember I knew him, but I didn't know him as well as I do now. Like we're quite good mates now. And basically, I remember him saying, "Oh, mate, just start fully locked in head and arm from side control,
Yep.
and I'll escape." And it's like he's not going to learn anything from just playing keep away because I couldn't pass his guard on my best day, you know. So it's about, and I think that's somewhere where again, jiu-jitsu's still in its infancy. It's still in its like amateur age. Is that people go, what do? You go training, right? You do a couple of shrimps up and down the mat. You do 45 minutes of technique, and then you go like Mortal Kombat for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I think brown belt has been the belt where I've probably like grown the most in terms of jiu-jitsu, because it's where I've actually gone home and been a bit more cerebral about it. You know, I don't ever take the back. Why don't I take the back? Oh, because when I go and take the back, people escape out of my side control. Well, why do I do that? Because my back control's crap. Okay, cool. What do we need to do? Work on our back control.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's the benefit of some clubs now, and obviously I can vouch this obviously with my own club and obviously other clubs you've spoken to, is that even though it maybe seemed like frowned upon, like, oh, how often are you going to do EBI rules type thing, but doing that positional sparring every single bloody session then puts in perspective that even if you as a teacher are going, I think Joe Foy mentioned it in his podcast, that you teach, I don't know, a particular leg lock move, right? And then they're going through it absolutely fine. Then it comes to open sparring, they're all just doing Kimuras. And you're like,
and that was something. Do you know what? And that was something that actually I used to be really guilty of at blue belt, because I've always had a pretty decent close guard, and if nothing else, I've got strong legs and I can just hold someone there. And I think it used to be like, right, we're going to start from spider guard or lasso or de la Riva. And the first thing I'd do would be to get them into close guard. I'd abandon the de la Riva and get them into close guard. And long term, did me no favours. That's why I've basically had to go back at brown belt and learn how to open guard, you know, and because I don't think anyone ever came over and was like, you're damaging your own progression by doing that. And I think that's where jiu-jitsu is possibly still in its infancy a little bit, is that we don't sort of coach. And again, going back to my sort of rugby background, you run a drill and you'll sort of get that individual feedback. You should have gone that way. You should have zigged when you should have zagged, like that kind of thing. And I think that's where that professionalism hasn't filtered down. And this is where you get people who don't train hard. Some people attend training. You know, some people say, oh, so and so is always training. It's like, yeah, but they attend training. They turn up to training, they do the warm up, they do a bit of positional sparring or a bit of position work, and then when they go into sparring, they turtle up and they're fighting not to lose. You're not doing yourself any favours whatsoever. You know, you have to, and I think that's the advantage I've had probably in fact all the way through, that there's been people at the gyms that can just do what they want with me, and I've not had the option of being able to just turtle up and, you know, no one can do anything to me, because, you know, you've got people like Rory. I remember Rory once rolling on a Sunday and he just looked at me and went, I think it's guillotines today, big dog. I was like, oh, brilliant, thanks for that, mate. 6 guillotines later, and I'm like, oh, thanks, Rory, yeah, I'll see you later, mate.
Probably they were like sore throat coming afterwards, like,
exactly, like someone like, you know, calling the submission, or, you know, like, I think we're going to do this today. Oh, are we? Cheers, mate. Thanks very much.
Please do this to a white belt. Just come with an envelope and just hand it over.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but that's what I mean, you know. And it's
just there, like, you know, it would be like, I'll be like, hey, how are you?
But looking back on it, that's obviously like something he was working on that day at that higher level, and I think that's kind of a little bit of what's missing with some people's training. That some people just turn up and they fight not to lose. And I've had this conversation with one of the guys at the gym I train at now, with Rich, where I've just said, look, mate, you've had a really good round there, you didn't get tapped, but the reason you didn't get tapped is because you've just turtled up and locked all your limbs in. And it was something that, you know Rodrigo, don't you?
Yeah.
Something Rodrigo told me when I think he was a purple belt and I was a white belt, and he was like, look, you need to remember why you started doing this. You've always got to think one eye on the self-defense aspect. And if you're wrapping someone up in their gi lapels, it's quality for sport, but don't focus on that all the time, because if you ever get into a situation where you might need to rely on your jiu-jitsu to look after you, or at least you've got it and they haven't, you know, you're not going to pull worm guard on the walkabout dance floor at 3 o'clock in the morning.
I don't know.
do you know what I mean?
Depends if it's winter or not.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's something that has always stayed with me. I've always thought, okay, I need to at least keep my jiu-jitsu honest and make sure the basics are done well. And that's something that I maybe neglected that I've now had to go back to, which is why I'm now in an armbar from mount phase. I went through a phase of doing loads of reverse half, so reverse scarf with the half guard. And then Rich told me off and was like, mate, don't do that anymore, because someone big's going to push you down and take you back, like I do. And I was like, yeah, fair one.
Do you think that is because your progression through the belts, you got comfortable with what you knew, So like from white belt, you got like one technique. You're like, cool. I know I'm fucking good at this. Get your promotion. Everyone knows you as the guy who's good in close guard, for example. Yeah, don't go close guard, blah, 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 blah. Then you go to purple. You find something else that you're good at. Do you find that you get like locked into techniques? And you kind of
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I just used to omoplata. I used to omoplata people left, right, and centre. And I was like, oh, this is working, this is cool. Whereas maybe I should have gone, and this is what I've done now. And I think also like I'm a bit more mature now. I'm in my mid-30s, and with I've got 2 little girls now. I've had to maximise my training.
Yeah.
So like, it's not like back in the day when I could train every night of the week and on a Sunday, and I could literally turn up, and I could turn up and attend training. Yeah. I could turn up and be like, oh, I don't want to be here, but I'm just going to go through the motions. Now, if I'm knackered, I won't go training, and I'll speak to my missus and I'll say, do you know what? I'm not going to go tonight. Can I go tomorrow night instead? Is that what our plans and what have you?
Yeah.
Because I kind of like, when I'm out of the house, I need to maximise those sessions. And I think that was part. I think part of the issue as well was I don't agree with how much IBJJF charge for the service they provide. I don't think it's a worthy investment of my time or money. I think you're looking at what 140 quid or whatever for plus the travel, getting some food, getting down there, and all the rest of it. Like, was it Jed Hugh that went all the way to Paris?
I think it was.
Was it Jed when I think I saw that on his Instagram. I think he went all the way to Paris for the Paris Open, paid to enter, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Opponent no showed.
Yeah. So he got default when he was like shit.
Yeah, and I
know boys. Like obviously Mark had that with his no comp in Ireland.
Over in Ireland, yeah.
And his opponent was there. His opponent just refused to go on the mat.
All the way to Ireland to get nothing from it. And I think for me, it's not something I'm not willing to make that investment of time and money. And I think that possibly harmed my development a little bit. Going back to your question, Tom, because from white to purple belt, I did primarily local comps with some really some decent people in comps. Don't get me wrong. I fought Leon in Newquay. So Leon Hines, Army brown belt, lovely bloke, really good comp game, like outstanding comp game. It's someone I'd like to train more with. Same with Josh. I'd like to be able to get down and train more with them. But a lot of the army camps and that are during the week when I'm working. But I was never going to do an IBJJF, so I don't think I ever got filled in. And I think in my head, and I know this is the same with a lot of the old school Pedro guys, because the gym was so tough. When you went to comps, it was almost like a bit of time off. And I think
great Muhammad Ali phrase, isn't it?
Yeah.
I want to make the training that bad that when it comes to the actual fight itself.
So, and I think in hindsight, I probably would have been better off maybe doing a couple of IBJJF comps just to see that big comp environment. And
this is what I'm saying. Obviously, with the training, obviously for that for myself personally, is obviously in September. Obviously, a lot of the club are going over to Poland for the ADCC trials. I have no expectation of walking away, getting the invite, right?
Yeah.
Even at that, like just because of obviously that. But in my head, I'm like, right, cool. We're going to put some obviously effort into this. See, I think I mentioned it to someone else. It will highlight holes in my game so much more quicker.
Yeah, 100%.
Than me turning up each and every week and just trying to learn.
It's also that so I keep using Gary as a really good example. When Gary started training with us, it was a bit like, oh, someone new's good, but he didn't know my game. I didn't know his.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant. And
that's why I like being a gym.
Yeah, and this is.
Since I fucking obviously doing this, we've been able to go to like Nottingham and May. Unfortunately, we get the roll up there. But I think we've been to elite, and although I've rolled the elite guys at the open mat, going to their open mat, their home, and rolling with them, completely different.
Yeah, and
I rolled with Joe before, and fuck me, man. Like I was expecting him to just fucking Godzilla throw me, but he is so technical, and like I've only ever been under Peds. I've never been anywhere else.
So whenever I'm away, if I'm away for a long period of time, so every year I've got to do like a 2-week block of military stuff. 9 times out of 10 I'll take my gi with me.
Yep.
And I remember when I did my dog handling course up near Leicester, so I went down to like Leicester shoot fighters and stuff like that, and it was exactly, and it's that ability, and this is one thing I love about the community, which I sort of prefer to rugby. I went up to a teaching conference in Gloucester last month. One of the guys from our club, Will, his sons play football in Cheltenham. So he's up there all the time. So he'll drop the kids off at football and go and roll and then go back and pick the kids up. 2 phone calls later, I'm chatting to a Polish guy from this gym in Cheltenham who's invited me up at 5:30 in the morning. So I've driven up the motorway, trained, and then gone to this teaching conference. And you're not going to get that in any other community. No. And being able to go and roll with guys, and it was the same way. I took my gi on honeymoon with me, mate, and like, And my missus was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Well, you pretend you're not a bit ginger. Like, you every holiday we go on, she turns into a fire extinguisher and tries to be like, oh, I thought I was all right." That ship sailed a long time ago for me. And it was little things like I popped into a gym in, was it Monterey? No, I trained in Monterey. Santa Barbara, trained at Paragon in Santa Barbara. Walked in, walked in. I was like, "All right, guys, how you doing?" "Oh, where's your accent from?" I was like, "Oh, England." I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm on the honeymoon." "That's amazing, man. Get you in. Sparred with them all, quality." All of that lot, though, they can all wrestle, can't they? Found that out the hard way. Wrestling in school, that's something that needs to come in, because honestly, that's something obviously I think we're lacking a bit in the UK.
Massively.
Like, I can remember like battering this lad, and then like we sort of came up to the feet, and he's just single legged me into next week. I was like, whoa, we're staying down here from now on. But like getting like bits of information from them, like this is where you want to go for lunch. This is a good restaurant. Don't go there. It's such a great community with like the value that it's got. So,
I think, like I said, the community itself is probably honestly the best out there I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Right? Don't get me wrong. Everyone has dickheads in there, right, and create animosity for any odd reason, for whatever reason, which is fine. But majority of the time, 99% of the time, you can travel anywhere in the world, right? I think even Show Your Old did something about the guy who had a cauliflower ear, and he was in Five Guys, right? Five Guys employee recognised the fact he had cauliflower ear and gave him free fries and a free drink.
I was sat next to a bloke. I sat next to a guy in Las Vegas at a blackjack table, who saw my collie and went, "Oh, are you here because it was the World Masters that week?"
Was it? Yeah.
And I was like, "No, mate, no." I said, "I'm on honeymoon." I said, "It's just coincidence. I've ended up here. Like, I've done nothing but like eat lobster and drink champagne for like 2 weeks." And he was like, "Oh," he said, "I've had a bit of a rough morning." And he'd flown in from like Montana or something like that. So it's like in America. He's had to get like 2 flights of bus and a donkey to get to Vegas. And he drew Cyborg in the first round. So he's gone all that way, right? He's gone all that way for literally like 25 seconds in the washing machine, and then he's just sat at this blackjack table just like that.
I was like,
it's like you said about the community though. How fucking cool is that though? Because it's like I think it was Yao Chin one day. Yao Chin went down to London. Yeah, cool. First competition.
So
fucking match with Ross Nichols.
Yao Chin's a blue belt, right? And so really, really good at blue belt and stuff like that. And was said, right, I'm gonna do the elite. Yeah, which is like again an encouragement to go and put yourself in.
Put yourself out there.
Match against Ross Nichols. Now,
treat yourself. Yeah.
Now the good thing for you, I don't think he lost from what I remember. He lost on points basically. He didn't get subbed or anything like that. And then, like I said, he just took more stuff away from it.
You need people to like almost pressure test you, don't you? Do you know what I mean?
The other thing I was going to mention, I think I sent you an Instagram post. I think it was yesterday, and it was like, what we should do is we get everyone in the world to go on a giant, I don't know, person-to-person bracket, and this commentator's like, yeah, this is how we'll do it, and then it goes. It's this random guy who's like shadow boxing, like, "Hi, mate, Dave, we've got your first opponent. His name's John Jones."
It's like John Jones, the UFC fight. He goes, "Are you fucking joking?"
Like,
that's it.
Go, and I'm like, there would be someone who'd get that fight.
You end up like, there's.
The community's so good because we're basically reaching out to people. Hello, can we borrow you for fucking 2 hours? Which we know, you could be doing a seminar, teaching.
Well, we've had to wait because of my half term, haven't we?
Yeah,
so in order to get that sorted.
I went to the ADCC heavyweight camp in Drake last year. Yeah, last year, and rolled with Owen, rolled with Ash, rolled with Theon.
Yeah.
And then I also rolled with Abby O'Toole and. Fuck me, mate. I've never been armbarred so quick in my life.
Yeah.
It was unreal. And I also rolled with Tom O'Hagan.
Yeah.
He fucking battered me.
I went to primary school with Tom.
Yeah. I've known him for so long from my mate Aaron, who lives with him and stuff. I was like, this would be such a massive opportunity to not roll with these random people who I've never met before in the UK. And like, all these big names just on the mat. Ash Williams, yeah, come down, mate. Roll. Not a problem at all. And like, I think you could, in pretty much most gyms, bar certain ones, you could probably quite easily message them and say, "Hey, I'm there for a week. Would you mind to come roll?"
Yeah, I do agree with what Craig Jones put out a little while ago, though, being like, if you're coming in and there's professionals and you're not good, don't come near, because it is their living. One accidental sort of like landed on a leg or something.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't want that to happen. One thing I did want to actually talk about was the transition from rugby to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Right. What was different about the communities? Obviously, 'cause let's be honest, in rugby, you've probably got like multiple probably group chats where everyone's absolutely fucking sound. All that type. What drew you more to the jiu-jitsu element with that? Like, so again, two very solid communities.
Yeah,
but two very different.
like for me, it was the idea of working hard as an individual in an individual sport, but still being part of a team.
Yep.
Like being able to like manage my own destiny. Like on the mat, it's you. But like with rugby, you know, you can play your best game in the world, but if someone else is off their game and drops a pass and that, you can still lose the game.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit like, oh, hang on, I've tried my best today. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like it's like the old classic, you know, you turn up on a Saturday morning and your fly half spin out the night before. Like, and that doesn't that you know that
that was the reason it drew me to it in the first place. So obviously, I've done lots of different sports, football, rugby, all that type of stuff. And what used to infuriate me slightly was the fact that, let's say you were doing extra fucking work, right, to really help you improve and stuff like that. And I'd say the majority of the culture within those type of environments, depending on where you are, is, oh, you're being a bit odd.
Yeah, and also, do you know what? I'll be absolutely honest. I'm not very good at rugby. I am absolutely a blunt instrument. I just run at people. Like I've various like because I didn't really do any sport growing up at all. And it was only when I was 18 working in a pub and there's a guy who's an old boy from my rugby club sort of was like, oh, do you fancy playing a bit of rugby? I was like, yeah, whatever. And that was my first sort of foray into sport. Was at like 18? Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of where it sort of came from. And then when I went into rugby, it was quality, but that support wasn't there because it's all about banter in it. So you know, blokes and budgie smugglers calling each other dickheads all the time. Like, you know, so that's basically what it is. And that idea of the support and people, you know, rallying around you and helping you through stuff you're bad at, and if you're bad at this, someone comes over and shows you, and that was what I really liked about jiu-jitsu. I could also do it more often.
Yeah.
You know, but also you can control it a lot more.
Yeah.
Like if you've got a bad leg, you won't get on that rugby pitch. You're an idiot if you do. If you've got a bad leg, you can say, mate, I've got a bad leg. Just don't footlong me on that side.
Yeah.
You know, or you can roll with people you trust. You know, you can't really. I mean, I've seen most people get injured in rugby matches, in charity matches.
Really?
Like when you're having a laugh and a bit of a mess around and that, and then you know, very rarely see people get injured in like top intensity matches when everyone's trying their hardest. So yeah, that was what kind of drew me over, just like the cultural sort of side of it, and you know, and also like it's just a bit more grown up.
I just like the fact, like I said, the efforts you put into yourself is what then transpires obviously on the mat. And I think that's the one thing, because as you kind of mentioned, right, I didn't get on well with my local rugby team, if I'm honest. Again, being a bit of an outsider, I went to Bristol School, but I lived in Cleveland at the time and stuff like that. And just didn't get on with them in the slightest bit. They just kept on viewing me as like, oh, you train elsewhere, that type of thing. And then they'll go and train at their local school, right? And then they'll come to the local club as well. And that would be like, oh, everyone knows everyone type thing. Coming in from an outsider point of view, just didn't get on. Right, I might have been a melt for all they concerned type thing. Which is fine, whatever. I'm happy obviously to talk about it. Like, no, obviously be open about that. But at the same time, for me, it was like, I like the independent, which is actually why I ended up doing like a little bit more bodybuilding to begin with, right? Kind of went into that position of right, well, it's just me, no one else is going to get me into the position I want to be, right? Then the CrossFit element came into it as well. Obviously, I got diagnosed with type 1, well, giving my life story here, and I was like, right, bodybuilding and type 1 ain't going to go well together. And then again, it was independent, it was you and that clock. You got to do X amount of reps in 20 minutes. You can rest as much as you want, but guess what?
That was the weird thing for me. So like, obviously, having started sport late, I didn't have like that. Those amazing fine motor skills and floating 40-yard passes like you see some people doing. So I've always been a bit of a blunt instrument. Get the ball, run at people. You know, jiu-jitsu bizarrely was the only sport I've ever done where it just clicks.
Really?
Like there's some bits that, you know, again, some of the like inverting and stuff like that, just because of my size, I find that harder. But there's things I look at and some of the submission chains and stuff like that, to link that to rugby with like a free face play, no chance. Jiu-jitsu, I can go triangle to armbar, to omoplata, to sweep, to come up, to reverse half. You know, I can do those moves and it makes sense in my head and it's like a jigsaw puzzle. You know, I've got quite a big case of undiagnosed ADHD as well, and I think that the jiu-jitsu really helps with that. And I think particularly for the setting that I work in now, I think it's brilliant for kids with ADHD and brilliant for kids that have got a bit of anger. But I think this idea that jiu-jitsu is like this magic pill that everyone can take, I don't think that's accurate. It's not for everyone getting crushed under someone.
What do you think about that then? Obviously that statement, this magic pill that everyone can take. So certainly a lot of cases where I'd say, again, I've probably had this more commonly from people who've done bodybuilding before, right? Gone down the enhanced route, got on the trend, it's just basically mucks with their heads so much, right? Relationships have gone down the pan, like family have not gone well, that type of thing. And then they've found this other sport, which for whatever reason is just still seems to be clicking with them. And then it obviously puts them, not saying on the straight and narrow, but calms them down a hell of a lot type thing.
It keeps you honest, doesn't it, though, jiu-jitsu? Like I said earlier on, you can't go out drinking on Saturday night if you're rolling Sunday morning. I mean, you can, but it's going to work. Even if you're better than everyone else, it's going to work. And I think also it never ends. jiu-jitsu.
True.
And I think that particularly, I think you tend to find that people that get into bodybuilding, people that get into, I've got quite an addictive personality.
Yep.
Okay, I've got quite an addictive personality and quite an obsessive personality as well. Jiu-jitsu is brilliant for me because I channel that into that. So like, true story, just as the event 2 years ago that happened that put everything on pause, just as that kicked in, I was like, oh, I need something to do, don't I? And I got as far as having a PlayStation in the basket on Amazon. I got as far as I was about to order one, and I sat there and I thought, if I buy a PlayStation, I'm going to be sat here in my pants at 3 o'clock in the morning with a headset on, giving American kids chat.
Sounds perfect.
Do you know what I mean?
We need to do this.
Yeah, exactly. But this is why I don't own a games console, because I will end up going down that rabbit hole with it.
You know what, I'm very similar in the sense that when I do get time, which is basically none at the moment, every time that I've ever touched my PlayStation, people are like, oh, do you not get bored of this game? I only get focusing on such minute details. And for me at the time, it was just doing challenges for camos on guns.
Right.
So for me, we used to play Modern Warfare loads as a kid back when it first came out, and it was trying to get the golden gun.
Yeah.
And that's what I ended up doing. I'd go on the same map with the same gun.
Just obsessing over it, yeah.
And just over and over and over.
But that'd be me. And I'd be like, and in the end, I ended up getting absolutely obsessed with doing like thousands of burpees and running 40, 50k a week, which probably long term was better for me,
definitely.
But yeah, and I've always been I've quite a good aerobic base to come with sparring, which has been. I mean, we've rolled, haven't we? We've definitely rolled, haven't we?
Many times. Like, mate, I've rolled with you since I was a white belt, and you're now brown. Because I figured out the other day, because I was chatting to Tom when I went down to Emily's. I've been under Peds for 7 years.
Yeah.
So I was at Merton Road with you lot, doing the fucking horrible rope climb and all that shit.
Yeah, Merton Road was rats. People don't understand what Merton Road was like. It was rats, and this.
It was the summer days where Peds used to keep the fucking shutter down.
Yeah, you might occasionally open the garage shutter that much. Do you know what I mean? But like.
Easy to breathe.
Yeah, exactly. But like with and this is what I mean. I was, from what I was brought up in that environment, as are a lot of the sort of Merton Road old boys that mostly now are hitting sort of brown and black belt. And I think that people don't know. Yeah. People now expect to go to a gym and do it for a year, get a blue belt. 3 years, get a purple belt. 5 years, get a brown belt. And it's like, it don't work like that. You have to put the hard yards in. You have to. And actually, and this is where I'm always kind of, I wouldn't say suspicious, but when you've got people that have got an outstation gym and they're affiliated to a federation, it's being run by a purple belt, and that black belt lives in like Vladivostok or whatever, and they pop in once a year to grade. I'm like, he hasn't got a clue.
What's going on?
He's taking the word of a purple belt who isn't focusing on their own game because they're teaching. So actually, what do they know about your development? Because you don't know what you don't know. And that's why I'm always a little bit like, well, hang on, you're saying you're getting graded to this and getting graded to that, but I know that with my development coming up, particularly under Pedro and now with Rich, if I'm screwing something up, I know about it very rapidly. Like, I'm told immediately, and some people don't like that. Some people don't like that accountability, and it takes a certain amount of humility to be able to do that, and to be able to go, do you know what, I've just been told off. I like it. I've got quite an extrovert personality. I will walk around like a peacock giving it the big un. That's just the way I'm made. And I need to be slashed down to size from time to time. And I found that quite hard to take in my 20s.
Yeah.
So now and there was a few times, like particularly when I obviously served overseas, that there were, my section commander at the time, Daz, he would grip me all the time. Come on, Ginger Maggot, get on that. And at the time I was like, well, this is a bit much, isn't it? But actually, I needed to be told because I was screwing up.
Yeah.
And I think that's where some people really struggle with being able to realise, do you know what? Yes, it's a martial art. Yes, it's a hierarchy, right? Actually, your opinion probably doesn't count that much. If you're a blue belt and you've just gone and won worlds, then yeah, fair one, I'll listen to you. If you're someone who has attended 20 classes and got a blue belt, because I've seen guys come to ours from other schools where they've been graded on attendance, and it's not the talent level's not been there. Yeah. And actually, and do you know what? And it's embarrassing for the person. I know a guy who wanted to hand his blue belt in. He wanted to go back to white belt, and I've seen it before. And the analogy I think I used to you off air earlier on was that people are being sold a fake Rolex. Like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu it's the Rolex of martial arts.
This is the same thing. I don't know. Part of me again. I don't know if this is again more positive on the no-gi front, right? If you're not wearing rank rash guards.
It's like Thai boxing, isn't it? You go in your Thai box. It's the same with wrestling. You go in, you wrestle.
I don't care. Like, at the end of the day, I don't know. I did make a mistake. I think I've said this before about how I rolled with someone. I was like, "Oh, are you like a blue belt?" And he was like, "No, I'm brown."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, I've just insulted him. Like, I didn't mean to do that."
Yeah, no, I've had
thing.
that before where I've rolled with like a pair of shorts on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And you know, and then the roll, oh, what belt? You're on my brown belt. Oh, all right, but it doesn't matter. We just had a good round, like, you know.
Still a good round.
But I think that like I keep going back to it. I think that people need to start leaving egos at the door. And when I first started at Merton Road, it was like, you didn't just turn up to Nogi. You got asked. You know, you didn't turn up to the advanced class. You went to beginners, and I can remember it was like when you're on a touchline in football or rugby and you're a sub, and it's like, put me in, coach. You know, and like I can remember like sparring at like 10-7, like after I'd been there for about 5-6 months, and I was like in sparring, I was like trying to murder people. I was like, Peds, look, you know, I'm doing, look, I'm ready to step up. And then in the end, I remember when he was like, you know, oh man, do you want to come to like the you know the comp class? I was like, yes, I've made it. And I got there, and like you seen the Ralph Wiggum meme, like, you know, like I'm in danger, like that was me. I remember walking in and lining up, and you had Tom Schuyler was a blue belt, you know, Dan O'Connell was a purple belt, Blanca was a brown belt. You know, I think Matrix was a brown belt, and I'm like, oh my god, like, you know, be careful what you wish for. And the decision to not to hold people was absolutely right, because actually, if I'd have turned up earlier, if I'd have got filled right in by that lot 2 months in, I might not have gone back. Probably would have done, because I know what I'm like. Some people wouldn't.
It gives me flashbacks to when I was down at Sweatbox with a white belt, and I was like trying to worm my way in. Not saying worm my way in, but I'd be speaking to my instructor at the time, which was Wes, and sort of saying, could you put a nice word in to see if I can go into these competition classes, or like I think it was like an advanced class type thing. I was like, I want to do more Nogi and stuff, and it was like, and they were like, you sure?
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy to get
these
my
aren't
next.
the droids you're looking for.
Yeah. And I was just like, right, okay, I just want to, like I said, I'm happy to get filled in. And I think that takes a mindset for some people to say, I'm happy to lose over and over again. That was the first bit, but I think the next bit, which it took me a little while to understand, is that I've got to also be a good training partner for those people. Because if I'm laying there like a dead weight, they're not getting anything.
Do you know what? It's quite nice for me, because like teaching, it's my classroom. You know, military side, I'm an instructor in quite a lot of subjects.
Yes.
So most of the time, I'm the one putting the foot on the bottom. You know, with jiu-jitsu, I love being the student. I just love going in and learning. I just love going in and not having to worry about teaching or what I'm going to teach at that private. And my missus said to me, she's like, "Oh, would you ever think of like teaching or whatever?" I'm like, "No," because I never want it to feel like a chore.
This is the great thing about it. I can't take my phone on there.
Exactly.
I can't have my watch on there.
Exactly.
It's just me on the mat.
Exactly, mate. And it's like,
off.
and again, like in terms of being kept honest, I remember there was doing a comp class, and me, Rich, and Hibbard were in the same group. Brilliant. And it was like, when you started in the middle, you had to run to the guy one side the mat, and I think do a takedown, or do a sprawl, and then it was like, run to the other side the mat, do a burpee, and then a takedown, and it was like 10 reps of that. And literally, like my heart and lungs were hanging out of my mouth. Do you know what I mean? So we went round, and then it was Rich's turn in the middle, and he came up to do his takedown on me, and I just basically fell on the floor. You know, I didn't attempt to resist it. You know, it's like you're doing like 50% takedowns. Yeah. And he literally just went, right, everyone stop. Crocs are screwed up. Probably the language was a bit more colourful than this. Yeah. You know, don't want to do it properly, so everyone's doing burpees, right? So everyone got 20 burpees. And do you know what? I was cool with that, because actually I deserved to get gripped.
Yeah.
Right? And this was probably a year ago now, and the message understood. It's still in there now. You know? And what that did to my training going forward. At the time, did I like being caught? And I was like, sorry lads, my fault. Just get on with it. You know, that sort of hard group training with accountability and real life, I won't even use punishments, just real life accountability. It keeps everyone honest, and you get better results from that.
So where do you think it gets watered down then? Is it just the fact that, again, I'm trying to be in the shoes of potentially the instructors in this point, that if you've got a club which is, let's say, 500 plus members, right? Big fucking club.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There are going to be some people who are just not going to get on with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas if let's be honest, obviously in comparison to other clubs that we've been talking about, you've got a good, nice knit community of like, let's say 50 members. Yeah. And they understand what they're dealing with. Yeah. And the fact is they'll add more to it. So where does it get watered down?
I think it's the money, and I think that actually if you're a black belt and you're full time and you've finished your competitive days, and let's face it, there's no money in it. Whatever people's like, there's some guys out there making decent money, but the majority of jiu-jitsu guys, I would suggest, are making their money through privates. Yeah. Right? Which is why it annoys me when you get rubbish people doing privates, because from my point of view, it's like, hang on, you're just taking food out of the mouth of that guy. If he's offering 40 quid and you're offering 20 quid, then people are going to go to you, because you don't know what you don't know. And I think that where it gets watered down is, people sort of, you're always going to take on. If you're a black belt and you've got 5 gyms, and someone says, "Oh, can we come under you?" You're going to say, "Yeah," because it's more money. But then you need to make sure that the guys that are running that gym, that you've got confidence in their abilities to be able to say, "Do you know what? This guy's ready for a blue belt." And if that guy in that gym running it is a blue belt, how can you possibly have that confidence? But you're going to do it because it's following the money trail, And I think that it probably goes back to the conversation we had earlier about, me and Tom disagree on this. Me and Tom Shaler, obviously really good mate of mine, Tom. We disagree. I don't think everyone gets a black belt, and that's controversial. If Rich is my sort of coach now. Rich turned around to me and went, "Mate, I don't think that you're ready for a black belt. I don't think you're going to be anytime soon." I'd be like, "Cool, no dramas. Still going to keep training."
Would you not be intrigued as to what you'd need to do to get that further?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
And that's the question I'd ask. But I think everyone can get a blue belt. I think what we're starting to see now is purple belt being watered down. When I first started only 8 years ago, right, blue belts was like, I remember watching Tom at a comp and watching him bolo people before I knew what it was and all the rest of it. And I was like, I'm never going to get that good. And then 9 months later, I'm getting a blue belt. And I was absolutely crapping myself first session back because I was like, I don't feel like I'm ready. And then the same up to purple. Purple belts were like Rory was a purple belt, and I used to watch him murder everybody.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to get that good. And but I'd be cool with that if someone said to me, "Mate, you're not going to be ready for it, because you need to work on this." And if I worked on it, you're still not there. You're still not there. And if that went on for 5 years, 10 years, I'd be like, "Yes, sound." But I feel like there's an expectation, and it's probably due to a lot of the entitlement that's in society these days. That I've trained 5 times this week. Yeah, but what have you done in those 5 5 sessions?
Yeah.
You turned up.
just turned up?
You turned up late. You skipped the warm up. You've chatted all the way through the positional technique.
Haven't done any actual
You
technical
haven't.
details,
Yeah,
eh?
you haven't sparred properly. You've done what I used to do at blue belt and pulled the guy straight into your closed guard because that's where you're comfortable. And then you've gone home. And it's like people who don't want to spar hard. And I've heard the analogy before. There's people who I think want to do jiu-jitsu because they want to sit in, a pub on North Street drinking an organic lager going, "Oh yeah, I do jiu-jitsu," which means I'm like well hard. And it's like, really, mate? Because every time I see you on the mat, you're getting ironed out by everybody.
So would you suggest then, like, again, listening to Paddy mention about this, within judo, for you to get your black belt, you've got to get a certain amount of points from competitive side of point?
Yeah, so I personally believe that to be a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and this is just my personal opinion,
Yeah.
I think you either need to be able to teach to black belt level or spar to black belt level or both.
Okay.
So there are people I know who, older guys, so they're older, they're full of injuries, not going to be able to fill me in.
Yeah.
But if I went to them and said, having dramas here in my armbar, yeah, mate, yeah, bam, 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 that's fine. I think what you're starting to get now is due to time served. There's purple belts out there that I'm thinking of now, but I'm not going to be horrible on a podcast, that cannot spar or teach to that belt level. But it's all right because they've been training 6 years.
Yeah, I know, I can agree with that.
And it's like the analogy that I used to earlier, I'm coming up to, I've done 17 years in the reserves. When I get to 20 years, someone isn't going to come in and go, "Oh, mate, there's your green beret." Like, because I'll be like, "Well, hang on, I haven't done the commando course." "Oh, there's your marine lead. I haven't done P company." It's not something I think should be granted. It's not something that I think should be thrown out willy-nilly.
So let's flip it on its head then. We're talking about time served. People obviously getting promoted very quickly.
Yeah.
Based on competition results and stuff like that.
I think if you win certain massive tournaments, there's nothing wrong with you going up. Because people develop, and this is what I mean, like development isn't linear, and this is a problem we have in education at the moment. People think that if a kid comes in on a old money grade D, that by year 8 they should be a C and then a B, and then it doesn't work like that. It's like lifting. You have plateaus. You have periods where you can't quite get past that 100 kilos on the bench. Then all of a sudden it flies up. People develop at different speeds. Like I flew through blue and purple. Like I hit purple belt in 3 years. And if it wasn't for the period of time, I probably would have been brown belt a little bit earlier. But actually, in hindsight, best thing that could have happened to me was that period of time, because it made me have time away from the mats and actually realise what I was missing, and realise actually I bloody love doing that.
Well, put that in perspective then. For you, obviously, to say someone's in your position, right, in terms of where you got your purple belt in 3 years. You said, yeah.
Yeah, I got my blue belt after 9 months, and I got my purple belt after 3 years.
Okay, so 3 years, right? Based on some of the, I don't know, stereotypical systems, right, that you'd look at that you wouldn't get your purple belt until 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Based on your abilities and stuff like that, then who would you feel then would be the more superior grappler? Do you see what I mean? Because you've now got someone who hasn't got their purple belt for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And then their brown belt's going to be even longer again.
Yeah.
Right, based on the typical traditional system of like, oh, you're going to get a stripe after 6 months.
But it's not just mat ability though. Like, and that's where I think people get stuck on it. It's not mat ability. Like, end of the day, are you a role model? You know, are you a good person? If you're in there training in the morning, right, and a kids class come in, are you in there playing, you know, the most sweary hip hop song with your top off, grunting away with a 50-kilo kettlebell, giving it the big one? You know, but there's a time and a place for that, you know.
Yeah.
But and I think that there's more goes into it than just, you know, can you feel someone inspiring? I know people who, you know, all they've got is a crossface, right, mount, and then some form of horrific submission. But like, we're talking basics. We're talking Kimura, Americana, wrist lock, right? Fair one, fine. If that person also isn't a good person and isn't a good advert for the gym, you know, is that someone you want to give a black belt to? Look at what Marcelo Garcia did with Dylan Dennis. You know, the guy got his black belt because he was mega, and this is what people forget about Dylan Dennis. His jiu-jitsu was and possibly still is mega, right? He then started hanging around with Conor McGregor, behaved like an absolute nulls, so he got kicked out of the gym because he wasn't fulfilling. You know, as soon as you give someone a belt, they're waving your flag. You know, and for me, that's always been when I've visited other gyms. I've been like, I can't walk in and look like an idiot. And there's been gyms I've gone to where like I've gone in and I've had a hard round, which is amazing, but I'm not going to go in and like, even if I go into a gym as a brown belt and the teacher's a blue belt, regardless of my thoughts on whether or not blue belt should be running gyms, I'm not going to go in there and batter him because that's not me showing the correct ethos and the correct, like, the ethics and the respect to him on his own mat.
So I think probably to summarise, it's the crossover between money and just trying to expand and build a business compared to the ethics behind it.
I think entitlement's got a lot to do with it. And I think the issue you've got now is there are some gyms that will promote quickly and or without having to fight hard for it. Like, there's a gym I can name now, which I won't, which I know they promote very willy-nilly, and it's done on a combination of attendance and just generally rocking up to training. It's not hard training. They're not getting thrashed, you know.
I think it's taking pride. I think that's it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly that.
The way that I work, right, is that I take massive pride in the results of what our clients get.
Yeah.
Right. To the point that I like to. My whole ethos is that, especially with the body transformations, right, is that they then become a walking marketing campaign.
Precisely.
For me.
Precisely.
Right.
And I have exactly the same thing when I teach, because I work with Army Reserve recruits in Exeter, right?
Yep.
If I've got Army Reserve recruits there, okay, and they go to their regiment after passing out, and someone's like, "Oh, it was your training screw. Oh, it was Crocks from dog unit. Oh, right, okay. Well, you're rubbish." And then I get a text going, "Mate, what have you sent us?" You know, it's about that pride, isn't it? It's what you have out there. There's no way that I would want to go to a gym as a Pedro Bessa brown belt rather, training with Rich, who's a Pedro Bessa black belt, and people going, "Oh, do you know what? That brown belt's coming. He was awful." Because it's you know, that's then almost me disrespecting my lineage through Pedro and my lineage through Rich now. So and I think, and that's probably due to my background as well. Lineage and hierarchy is quite important to me, and I think in 2023 people don't like that, and people don't like being told, actually, do you know what, you're wrong. Like, your opinion actually doesn't matter here because you've been training 9 months, you're a blue belt.
Do you think people should be in the position to turn down the promotion?
No, because I think that's disrespectful as well. I think at the end of the day,
even if it's from a club which
I would have turned down every promotion that I would have had.
Okay.
So when I got my brown belt, you know when I got my brown belt?
Yes.
Yeah, so when I got my brown belt, right, it was my birthday, right?
Was it?
Yeah, it was my birthday 2 years ago. So Pedro screwed with me. So promoted all the brown belts, then promoted all the purple belts, then started promoting blue belts. And do you know Ollie Johnston? Ollie Johnston looked at me and went, "How have I picked up purple and you haven't picked up brown?" I was like, "Mate, it doesn't matter." I was like, I'm not going to get emotional over it. It's like, I'll probably go and have a word with Rich and Peds and find out where the gaps are. I'll probably go and have a chat. I said, but I'm not going to get emotional over it. And then he waited till everyone was done and went, "Oh man, I've got one more." And then I got thrown by every black belt in the club. It was horrific. absolutely horrific.
It goes back to what you're saying. Like, jiu-jitsu isn't a magic pill, and it really isn't for everyone.
It's hard.
And like, talking about humility, like, I started doing jiu-jitsu because, just like everyone else, "Oh, did you see? That looks easy. I could do wrestling on the floor." And then I went to Merton Road and I sat there for about 20 minutes before, like, chatting to Pedro and kind of saying, I want to start and stuff like that. Before I did a lesson, so I went in, watched, see what it was about, and I was like, I've done judo as a kid, I've done karate, not to any fucking belt level. I hated karate because of the kata system. I was like, how can I... It's not if, like, and this is dumb because people say jiu-jitsu doesn't work in the streets, which I don't think is true, because I've had instances where it has. Like, how can I protect myself in karate? Because if this person is in a specific stance, a specific thing, I don't know what the fuck to do. So then I started looking at judo. Well, judo is way more fucking dynamic. I can throw people, I can jump on people. It's great. And then I found jiu-jitsu, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is fucking something else."
Yeah,
At the time I started, I was massively depressed, massively overweight. I went, "I want to fucking do this. This is starting to scratch the itch because it was really fucking interesting."
Yeah.
And
you like it because it's hard.
Exactly.
And I remember going in there just getting nuked by like 75 kilo scarecrow.
Exactly
I'm like, what the hell is this all about? You know.
And like you said earlier, like I think the biggest opening wake up to me is I've been going for. I did the Tuesday, the Thursday, and the Friday sessions every single week for 3 months, and I thought, fucking hell, I'm finally getting it. And then, obviously, one of our mates, Cranny, was like, "Oh, mate, you should come to open mat." And I didn't know at the time, as per the gym rules, is if you don't get invited by...
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what it used to be like.
Yeah.
But now you get people just like rocking up to no-gi going... Yeah, I'm meant to do no-gi. It's like, mate, you've done 2 classes. Oh, yeah, but I don't know what to do to gi, do I?
Yeah.
You know, it's like...
I felt we're talking about me here.
Yeah.
You know...
You shush. You sit in the corner.
But I completely get that, mate.
My open mat was... Rod stopped me, and I think Rod at the time was
probably a brown belt at the time.
Yeah, yes. He was probably brown belt. He went, whoa. He went, who said you can come in? I went, oh, sorry, I didn't realise. I just thought I'd come down. He's like, okay, no worries. He said, you roll with me. And...
Rod being really welcoming, was he?
Oh, really
yeah, that rings
back. Rod basically showed me what it feels like to have a brown belt put you in knee on belly and switch.
For about,
take his knee off and switch the other knee.
Yeah, he did the same thing to me when I was a white belt.
For about 10 minutes. And afterwards, he was like, cool, end the round. I had to go outside. I was really fucking upset. I was almost in tears. Like, literally crying outside the door going, this is fucking impossible. How the fuck can I expect to get better at
this? But if you did that now in some gyms, it'd be oh, that's bullying. That's out of order. That's that.
No,
and this is what I mean. And like for me personally, as someone who is gobby, who's a big lad, who likes dishing out chat, I need that. I need that accountability and that honesty. And I think that actually, if you go to jiu-jitsu and you're not coming out of there mentally and physically hammered, right? You're in the wrong club.
My wife can't get it. I'll sit in the car after I come back home from training and I'll just be there.
Yeah.
Going through my head.
The amount of times that I've driven home without the radio on.
Just and you're rerunning everything through your head.
You know, and it's just, you think people must just see you at the lights being like, oh, is that bloke all right? It's like, I've just, you know, I just think that some people are just mugging themselves off where they attend training or they go to a club where there isn't that edge, that element of like harshness. And you shouldn't train like that every day. It's not tenable. You can't train like that every day.
I'm a big advocate for that. It's hard sparring.
You know, exactly. But I think if you don't hard spar and you at least don't have that option, then actually you're not going to learn what it's like. And if you
know what, I'd even put it on the onus of the individual, right? If you're preparing yourself for a competition, right, and your club does not have a hard sparring environment, take the opportunity to find an open mat somewhere
100%.
and go and get that. And obviously, don't get me wrong, don't be rude and just turn up and try and smash everyone.
Maybe you can put social media. You can do 2 phone calls. You get any gym in the country.
Exactly.
You know,
and turn up, do some hard sparring, and hey, I've got it there type of thing.
Yeah, I just think that you've got, you know, you need to, like I said, onus on the individual to go out there. But if you're thinking to yourself, oh, you know, if I don't get a bit of tape on my belt, or if I get shouted at training, or if I get told off, that I'm going to go and, you know, get my ass in my hands and have a whinge about it and complain. Possibly you're in the wrong martial art. Just possibly. And I think that hard edge, which is what people don't like, me personally, keeps me honest. I love it. I go in there. It's the one environment where, you know, I'm not higher up in the hierarchy, you know, because at school, it's my classroom. When I'm teaching stuff with the army, it's my lesson, you know. Jiu-jitsu, I'm a student. I'm there to be told what to do.
I think for me, if I didn't have that open mat experience with Rod, I wouldn't still do jiu-jitsu. Because I had to literally sit down myself and go, if I walk out now, I'm embarrassing myself.
Yeah, I did the same when Tom tried on me loads.
You've
you've sort of seen the mountain, you've seen where the level is, aren't you? And you're sort of like, right, I want to get there. Sorry, Jay, what were you going to say?
I think, you know what, just speaking to you, and again, sorry to kind of do a little bit of like work in my head when talking to you.
Yeah.
How are you going to feel when you get to black belt, mate? Because you're then potentially at the top. You're not teaching, and you're not. Well, I don't know about competing and stuff.
But I think I'll still have the same mentality.
Yeah.
You know, Gary said to me the other day about it. He said, "Oh, have you thought about like black belt?" And I was like, "No," because there's other. If I get a black belt at the same time or before Mark Hibbard, whole system's a joke.
Okay.
That's my personal interpretation of it,
Okay.
right? I have like again because I've seen the top of the mountain and I've seen people like Josh, one of Euros, right? If I get black belt before Josh, that's ridiculous, you know. And I know you grade people in different ways, and you know, being 36 with 2 kids means I'm going to get graded differently than someone who's 24 and trains full time. 100% get that, but I also want there to be some credibility in it. You know, and there is no credibility if me and Mark, you know, got graded at the same time. People would know I've been graded on a lower set of criteria, or as I perceive it, a lower set of criteria.
Okay.
And I've never done jiu-jitsu for the belts. Like I said, that time when Ped screwed with me and was like promoting everyone else, you know, I was like, I looked at Ollie and I just went, yeah, it's all right, it's what it is.
So with that comparison, then, do you feel like you need to compete as much as Mark then? Because as you mentioned, you're not into the teaching aspect of it.
No, I don't, and the problem I have with competing is that it's finding opponents. The problem that I've got is that my opponents are either I can go to the army comp and I can compete with a guy called Dan Kaneke, who's, I assume I've got his name right, who's is fought at Bellator. I think he's a
Unit.
I think he's a corporal in, I can't remember what regiment. You've got Josh, he's currently in a full-time army PID, so all he does is jiu-jitsu. That's his job. Right, so he's full time. So he's basically supported by the British Army to do jiu-jitsu. You know, those are the two sort of ultra heavyweight brown belts that I would end up fighting at an army comp. Okay, which is European Championship level. I'm not going to meld myself off. I'm not on that level. I'm 36 with 2 kids and a full-time job and a part-time job technically, and jiu-jitsu on the side. All right, so I cannot compete at that level. What have I got to gain from going and competing at local tournament? I looked at the Somerset Open yesterday. No one in my category. So I do occasionally look in, but there's never anyone in my category. So again, I'm in that sort of place between the fact that I know I can compete with other hobbyists, but I'm nowhere near the elite level.
So what point do you think, let's say, even 5 years, 10 years down the line, right, and you're still brown belt, right? Do you think that'll be enough time served for that black belt then? What's the time frame in your mind for it to be acceptable?
I haven't got a time frame. I don't think there is a time frame on it. No. I think that with the situation you've just described, if I was still a brown belt in 10 years, I would hope by that stage that my personality was mature enough and that I knew enough that I could teach to black belt standard even if I couldn't compete to black belt standard.
Okay.
And I think this is where there needs to be a discussion in the community about, do we start having pro leagues?
Do you know what? That's,
do you know when
that's happened recently.
Yeah,
mate.
and I think that when you go to a tournament, do you have, right, if you are full time, and this would where it be the onus on people not to be sandbaggers and not to be dicks about it, quite frankly. You know, if you are a full time, like Carson's full time purple, there almost needs to just chop the divisions in half and just go, do you know what? If you've ever competed, you know, professional MMA.
This is what happened with Mark recently with the British.
Yeah.
That was a pro because we struggled to find it, right? We were going through every single smooth comp trying to find out whether it was.
And it was qualifier, wasn't it, for the pro tournament?
No. His actual match, we couldn't find his match against Shane. We knew he was matched up. We were like,
where is it? Where is it?
We didn't see it. Not even on Smooth because obviously we couldn't watch it live. Well, we did manage to watch it because we managed to find some news on Instagram.
Oh, he was actually competing as well.
Yeah, he was competing as well, but there was no competition on for it. On Smooth Comp, we were like, shit. And then it was like underneath a couple as pro. And we were like, there we go, click on that. Mark, Shane. We were like, oh shit, here we go. And we're sat there watching, waiting, looking at the little arrows go around, going, come on, Mark, fucking, you got to do something.
Like, he's 2 minutes in, it's okay, he's going.
Suddenly play, and I looked at Joe and went, you don't know Smooth Comp very well, do you? He was like, no. I went, that means it's done. He was like, oh no. And then it's all.
He did all right for a bit, didn't he?
He did really
Because I tried guillotining him the session after, and he's like, I ain't tapping to guillotines anymore. But yeah, so I think I know what you're saying, and I know that like I personally don't have a problem with it, and it's the same with like, you know, medals I've got from the military, right? I've got 5 of the things, and there's only one of them that means anything to me, and that was my Afghan medal. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? The others have literally just been for turning up. Times.
North Somerset Pro Gold is not.
yeah, exactly. But
proud of my default bronze.
Yeah, but this is what I mean, and so I just think that I don't believe it's for everyone, and I think that it can be for everyone, but I think if you change the product to accommodate everyone, you're diluting it, and then you're not doing people any favours.
I think having a pro division would be a really good idea.
Yeah.
And also I think then it stops things like you said, if you go visit another gym, and well, like Trey Jones says B team. If you come to B team, you better be fucking good. And
Yeah.
don't come and try and because if you injure it, like,
But can you imagine me doing that in rugby? Can you imagine? Oh, you got this weekend. Oh, we've entered a tournament. We got Saracens in the first round.
Yeah.
Like you don't like you don't.
But also,
you know.
you'd have the knowledge of like
John Jones.
And
Yeah.
but the reason shit like that doesn't happen is because say, fucking I don't know, pull a name in my hat. Say you get Gary Tonan as your first match, or whatever. Imagine if you injure him by being spazzy or something that you don't normally do. He's fucked for the rest of that competition just because you went to get someone who has never competed at that level before. That's your first like pro competition elite level. I think it just fucks it all.
Yeah.
I think it suggests to me that you need to make something out of the IBJJF rankings.
Yeah. I think that within
you need to have like an AD. I'm not to say it has to be ADCC only, but you need rankings outside of that as a like.
Yeah, I just think that the community needs to have a little bit of a look at it itself in some places.
It's new. It's still growing.
Yeah, and I think
that again.
It's
This
got
is,
room to grow though.
it has, and this is the purpose of this. Is that again the whole point of what I know obviously it's not been too much nutrition recently when what we've been talking about, but the idea being is I don't want people to be making the same mistakes that other sports have done.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't, like you said earlier on, you can't just lift do this bodybuilding routine. Okay, brilliant. You might get massive.
Yeah.
But you're going to last a grand total of 35 seconds. And it's
exactly.
like, the other thing that's weird with jiu-jitsu is we don't have seasons. Just train flat out all year round.
Yeah.
Again,
There isn't many sports that do that. Like,
No.
I'd argue boxing probably is similar because boxing.
yeah, but you
doesn't
don't
have
though. You don't though,
seasons.
do you? Because with boxing, if you fight 3 times a year or twice a year,
Yeah,
you
that's
have you
massive.
do
have camps.
yeah. What you do? 12-week training camp.
Yeah.
You have your fight, and then
Yeah,
you have a
that's
few
true.
weeks off.
Yeah.
Then you're back
So
on
you
it,
do,
yeah.
but with jiu-jitsu, some people to train 5-6 nights a week, and then and this
And
is
we'll
where you
compete every
yeah,
single weekend.
and this is where you get people turning up on the mat and they look like zombies, and they're just, I was like, what are you getting from this? Go and go to bed. You know what I mean? Like go and have lunch. Go and do something different.
Like, the only
Like just go and have some food.
I always say like go have lunch.
But it's true though. I see people who literally will, they almost compromise their work to get to jiu-jitsu. Train 5-6 nights a week. They have
are a
nothing.
hobbyist.
They have nothing outside the sport. And it's like, what have you done? You've won nothing. You've done nothing. You're then marketing yourself doing privates. You're then marketing yourself doing, oh yeah, come to like this class that I'm now teaching. So you've taken on teaching as well.
I think
You take all
do
this
you know
stuff
what?
on as a
If you-
hobbyist.
To go deep, if I'm honest with this, that I think what they're doing is embodying something that they want to be.
Precisely.
And
Yeah.
there's something behind the scenes that they don't feel like they've found themselves yet.
Do
Basically,
you know what? I love being a hobbyist. I hate to do this professionally. I would hate to feel like, the activity that I, really, really enjoy, all of a sudden becomes work. And it's a chore. And it's like, and again, it's that entitlement. It's like, oh yeah, well, I'm so-and-so belt now and I've like done this local comp, so I'm going to set this up and people should want to come to me. This is the problem I'm having at the moment with like my little girl, because my little girl's coming up to 4, so I want to start training.
yeah.
I'm not paying someone that I can fill in to teach my daughter jiu-jitsu. So straight away, like in terms of the options that I've got,
That's like boyfriend first meeting the
But
boyfriend.
do
like,
you know
come in,
what I mean
roll.
though? Like I'm not gonna take my little one to like a club that's got a blue belt as a coach and go, there you go, mate, teach my daughter, when I know that I could like washing machine you up and down the mat.
Like I've taken my now 6-year-old to Tomska's class
Yeah.
on a Saturday.
I'll probably end up taking her to Tom's, to be fair.
He at first, like that's his first ever introduction to it, apart from me messing around with him on the floor and stuff, and he cried. He was just like, I don't want to do this. It's ridiculous.
Overwhelming, yeah. My
And
little one
then
was the same at
literally,
gymnastics.
The turning point was Tom came over to him and went, "You're doing really good, mate. Like this is great." And he went, "I'm doing really cool. He's got a black belt. I know." I was like, I was like, how do you think I fucking feel when they teach me a technique? He goes, yeah, Banter, can you do it? And I'm like,
I love it when real people say that to you. And like,
Yeah.
you're a black belt. No, mate, I'm a black belt. Or like when I was like a blue belt, no, I'm a blue belt. Oh, right. It's like, hang on, I could literally rinse you, mate.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Give
but
me
yeah,
this.
I think kids, oh man, it's difficult with it because I think I'm gonna get shot down by you and everyone else in the room now. I think I'm competent enough to probably teach my little boy to shrimp and
like basics. But it's the thing is, if you but straight away you've gone shrimp and maybe do an armbar. Yeah, so you know what you know.
Yeah.
My issue with the lack of humility in the community comes from people trying to set themselves up as
who are leg lock specialists.
yeah,
and can do a straight foot lock.
yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, I'm a leg locker, I'm a no-gi leg locker. It's like, are you, mate? Because it sounds like you've tried other things and you were crap at them. So rather than developing yourself, you've decided to go, I was the same the other night, again, doing berimbolo drills. I didn't want to do berimbolo, right? Rich was like, come on, mate, just give it a go. Come on, we'll work through it. And I got through it and I did it. But I'm not going to hit that in comp. I'm not gonna hit that in the gym. You know, exactly.
I'm waiting for it to be on.
do barrel
I'm waiting to see it on Secret Strangle Club of submission of the week.
That'd be it, mate. Yeah, just like some like
Do you know what you'll be like? I don't need my black belt. I've completed it.
just some massive orangutan just like rolling around somebody. But yeah, I just it's a drum I keep banging. I just think there's not enough of that, and there's people either and it's sort of the Amazon Prime culture in it. Oh, I click yes and I want it now, and I think people don't want to put hard yards in, and people want to be part of the community but don't want to put the work in.
Amazon Prime culture, that's fucking
This is the thing. I've said to many people that I see things as like 10-year projects quite regularly. And if people agree with that, I'm like, cool. I know, regardless of whatever your views are, we're in the same fucking boat.
Yeah, 100%.
Like to the point which, again, I probably get hate for this, obviously, for whatever. But I remember watching KSI in his bedroom, screaming Emerald Heskey and playing FIFA, right? And that was the days of like over 10 years ago of him doing that. He grafted with it to the point where he was earning more money than his teacher per month. And then it's carried on to where he is now, right? And obviously people see him now, obviously Prime, all that type, jazz, that type of stuff. They're like, oh, he's an overnight sensation. I'm like, no.
No, there's a lot of work going on now. I see this a lot with, so when I first started teaching, all the kids wanted to be footballers. And I was like, and I remember having to have a few tough conversations with some kids who were like 15 years old. It's like, who did you play football for? Oh, you know, the local old whatever, fourth team. I'm like, you know, you might want to think about cracking on with your studies, mate, because it might not happen, you know. And the fact I've seen you play football and you're dire. But it's all gone now towards like YouTube. I want to be a YouTuber, and it's like, and I've said to a few of the kids, I'm like, why do you want to be a YouTuber? Oh yeah, because you just talk on a video, it looks easy. I'm like, like I imagine editing this nonsense down is going to take a while. Do you know what I mean? And like it does take a while. It does take a while, doesn't it? And it's like, you know, kids think, oh yeah, I'll just talk in the microphone for half an hour. It's like, well, number one, you're boring, so people aren't going to want to listen to you for half an hour.
And same thing with like Twitch and that type of stuff, right? No offense, I know you've done it and everything, but you've got to be entertaining to some degree or bring something to the table. And people buy from people.
You know, I have a Twitch affiliate. I still get paid by Twitch.
Oh, do you?
I do, yeah. I still get a monthly payment.
Or what, 20p? Yeah.
No, I got 40 quid last month.
Jesus.
Yeah,
that's fair enough, isn't it? Like, I've got a friend who I can't remember the name of the game now, but she's like an online. She quit being a law student. So this is someone I serve with in the reserve. She's a reserve dog handler, same as me. She was a law student. She quit doing law because her voice. She's got quite a posh, you know, English voice, and she plays this game that's massive in Canada and America. I can't remember the name of it. It's called like Smash Mega something. I can't remember the name of it. But she's massive in that, to the point where they fly her out to the States, they host her at conventions, and but same thing. She's put years into that. Like going out on Twitch, and is it Discord the other one and that? Again, addictive personality. I don't touch things like that because I will be 3 o'clock in the morning, bottle of whiskey in my pants.
I've got these little South Park images, like
literally, mate. Literally, mate. Like that'd be me, mate. 3 o'clock in the morning, bottle of whiskey in my pants, like headset on. You know, probably
sat on like a porta potty.
Yeah, exactly. Just sat there, you know, camouflage cream on like that, just like giving American, full body armor, like just like, you know, wired deep in the rabbit hole.
You don't know me, son. You don't know me, son.
Trying to like dox people to fill him in afterwards. Like, you know,
you think that's a call out? Like, whoa.
You know, and you can see how my mind's connected all that then, and I'm like, yeah, I don't need that in my life.
Yeah. Cool. Right, we're back in.
We're back in. Right, questions.
Cool. Questions. Oh man.
We got a list.
Just been rinsed by everyone. Like,
fucking hell, I've got 4 fucking pictures of fucking questions. I'll try not to duplicate any of them.
Go on then.
So, first one. Have you ever done the Newquay Open?
Yeah, Newquay Open. That was the staple. That was the staple. I've got my medal rack in my garage, my treadmill and that, and it's just like Newquay medals. But yeah,
have you spelled the word Newquay out with them? Maybe.
Pretty much. Yeah. I'll tell you what, good story from the Newquay Open. You know Luke Taylor?
Yeah.
So anyway, me and Tom Showner entered the Newquay Open, right? Driving down there, we said to Luke, right, mate, we'll pick you up in the morning, obviously, to get down there for like 8 o'clock start or whatever.
Yeah.
If we left at like 6 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So obviously with Luke, we were like, oh, R5 meet, mate, put in a half-hour coefficient, because you know what he's like, right? Yeah. So he gets in the car and he's like, sleep on the back seat. So of course I'm now like beeping the horn on the way down, like being an idiot, like pulling off the motorway and driving through caravan parks, beeping the horn and that, waking people up at like 6:30, and just being a proper nose, right? Anyway, so for 2 weeks before the comp, we've been winding Luke Taylor up, right? So he was in the same category as you know Wayne Samways.
No, I don't.
Wayne Samways, big Welsh black belt now, brown belt at the time, lovely bloke, big guy with a beard, lovely guy, right?
Yeah.
So we were winding him up for 2 weeks before, going, mate, Wayne Samway's been slagging you off. He's like, oh, you pair of bloody ass, you're winding me up all the time and all the rest of it. And I'm like, no, mate, he's been winding you right up because Luke's likes a Subway, right?
Yeah.
So we were like, mate, he's been calling you the mega melt. He's been saying that you're like, he's been saying that you're like, you're a melt, and that and that he's the you're the gatekeeper of the black belt division, and that all someone's got to do is fill you in to get a black belt and all this. And we were literally like just niggling at him for 2 weeks before, and he was like, oh, I know you're winding me up. And then for some reason, Jason McCauley, right, just joined in. Like Jason McCauley went, yeah, I've heard that as well, Luke. Right? And so then Luke's like all the way down, and he's like, oh, God, wait till I see this bloke, wait till I see this bloke. And of course, me and Tom are now like stirring the pot, going, yeah, mate, yeah, well, I bet you'll bottle it when we get there and all this, right? In my little old Fiat Punto, like proper in-betweeners, like driving down there. Anyway, we got there, what's he done? Walked straight up to Wayne, and straight up to him, jabbed him in the chest. What's this I hear that I'm a gatekeeper to the black belt division, you start like swearing at him and all that. And Wayne's like, I don't even know who you are, mate. And he's going, yeah, we'll see who the mega melt is in a minute when we get you on the mat and that. And Wayne's just looked over Luke's shoulder. Me and Shiloh nearly had to be given oxygen, we were laughing so much. But yeah, he like absolute bit, hook, line and sinker. When he sees this, he'll probably call me a slag, that's his normal thing. But yeah, that's a favourite one.
Did Luke fit him in?
I can't remember actually, I think they went 1-1, one gi, one no gi. But yeah, it was like two orangutans hanging off each other, but it was a funny one.
We poking the bear on the way up.
Oh, no, but for 2 weeks beforehand. Every time we saw him, 2 weeks beforehand.
I know one question I was going to quickly ask. Apparently, you've come on here to look like a fighter. Is that the case?
Is that from Toby?
Yeah.
Oh, literally, thickest man in NATO, isn't he? He is stupid. I've never met anyone like it in my entire life. Joe, I'll just stitch him right up. So Toby fought, right, because Harry Brain told him that he wasn't allowed to enter the Bristol Open unless he owned at least 7 gis. Right? That you had to prove that you had a certain amount of gis because that meant that you were training enough to get in there. And he literally said to Harry, he's like, oh, I was going to do my entry to the Bristol, but have I got to buy another gi before I do it? So yeah, so any banter from Toby, we'll just shelve that because he is bringing a knife to a gunfight there.
I did warn him. I said, look, I'll ask that question, but as long as you can deal with the aftermath.
Well, it's like you saw what I texted him last night. He's putting these photos all over Instagram with his his 8-pack washboard abs and that. And I texted him last night. I was like, mate, you get regularly filled in by a fat history teacher with 2 kids. I was like, how does that feel? And he just replied with, quite annoying.
However, Toby is. I'll give him kudos. He's turned himself around.
Oh, he has, yeah. God,
he's
yeah.
obviously put the shift in and looking great from it.
He can take the chat though, which is good.
It's
all good. Right. Fucking hell, somebody's tired. I have to read through some of the questions. I'm like, fuck's sake. We'll go for this one. Just because we're on the subject of the Newquay Open, is it true that you once folded a man literally in half at the Newquay Open Absolute? Yeah, so absolute match, and obviously when it's like one of those chippy ITV programs, isn't it? Like when animals attack and that. And it's like when absolutes go wrong, right? So I've entered the absolute, and again, this was like 117 kilo me, right? So so I ended up drawing some guy, and he must have been like 60 kilos, like tiny, skinny bloke, right? And I was like, I'd see what happens. I thought, I could pull guard. I'm trying to think of a game plan anyway. So slapped hands, and he shot this double leg on me, right? And I have sprawled, and you can imagine like a hippo doing the worm, right? So as I've sprawled on him, okay, his head has touched his toes. He's literally folded in half, right? And all I heard, I think Jamie Hughes was there as well, actually. And all I heard, the room just went silent. I just stood like, ooh, from the side. And I think I ended up just flipping him over and Americaning him. But it was a bit like, you ever seen Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van Damme, when a bloke just walks off and there's this body on the mat, So yeah, that was bad. That's what it was pretty brutal. It wasn't great. This is brilliant. Fuck's sake. We've also been asked, how did your first ever competition go?
What was that? Oh, no, is that from Shola? Yeah, that was the GFT comp in London. I've been training for 3 months, so all I knew was an Americana and an Ezekiel. That's literally it. Americana, Ezekiel, that was it. So first match, guy called Greg, I can't pronounce his surname, trains with Jack McGee at Mad Hatters. He tried to Sotogari in me, and I ended up just reversing it and nearly smashed him through the mat. And then because I knew nothing else, he filled me in afterwards. I got this amazing throw, and I was like, oh, amazing, and then just got filled. And then in the absolute, because obviously from that, I think I won my first, no, that was my second match. I won my first match. So I got a silver medal, I think, not a default.
Not a default.
And then ended up going in the absolute. And because this guy pulled guard, right, and I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing here. He was a bit smaller than me. I think he was like maybe a heavyweight, maybe a middleweight. So I just Ezekiel'd him inside his own guard, just choked him out, put him to sleep inside his own guard. Yeah, and like literally like he stood up, dropped the body sort of thing. You know? But yeah, first comp was interesting with that, and then there was also an incident where I won't name him, but another Pedro Bessa person who I didn't know at the time was stood at the side just shouting random coaching advice. It was just like, oh, bow and arrow. To me, bow and arrow was something Robin Hood used. Like, I didn't have it. Like, literally, Ezekiel, Americana, that was it, right? And I remember shouting bow and arrow to the point where Shaula lost his head and told this individual to go away. You know, so like, it was brilliant. People getting choked out, arguments at the side of the mat, people no idea what they're doing. It was like, yeah, fantastic day of jiu-jitsu, like, yeah, like the Wild West.
This will be the last one. Well, no, there's another two actually, and there's several photos that he sent us as well. Does he like strawberry Muller yogurts?
Oh, yeah, I got a thing about strawberry Muller yogurts. I wasn't allowed them as a kid. It was like you know, growing up with like zero money and like proper poverty, and Muller strawberry corn in street fruit corners. That was like out of the price range.
Are we talking about like the pot?
That's the one, yeah, out of the price range. So now, if I see one, I'm on it. I'm like, proper like, you know, childhood trauma coming through, you know. So yeah.
So hold on.
Back in Afghan, you fucking jogger straight away. Get away.
Oh yeah. Literally, just strawberry Muller corners.
I love it. I see on the side of the mat like, oh, Crocker's getting in the zone. Like, what's he doing? Everyone's got their headphones. Everyone's like shadow
looking
boxing.
at strawberry Muller
and
corner.
He's just there like,
just looking at it, just looking at it, literally.
That's fucking me with the arm on the wheel and there's just strawberry yogurt at the road, just like.
Yeah, literally.
Should you ask? Just because we spoke about this earlier, should you ask other people for financial help to support your BJJ?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Tom pretty much, I know he shouted me out on the one before, didn't he?
Yeah.
Because I literally will see stuff, I'll send it to him and I'll be like, look at this. I'll be like, look at, like, this has just ruined my day. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to go in the garden now and throw rocks at the shed. Like, that's just, that's just absolutely ruined my day. I think if you want something, go out and get it, right?
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong. If someone said to me, oh, mate, I want to go and do the Worlds. I'm trying to raise money. I'm working, but I want some extra cash. I'd be like, same, come round, cut the edge, wash the car.
Yeah.
You know, do something for me.
Yeah.
You know, happy days. Or like when you see people who will be invited into a gym to teach a private or to teach a seminar.
Yeah.
You know, so and so's going to do a seminar because they're going to the Worlds, and you want to help that person out. To me, that's someone working for it.
Yep.
Right. All about that. Absolutely massive on it. When you've got like some absolute lizard that's not won anything, not done anything, and they're going, oh, this is my dream. Here's my GoFundMe page. It's like, well, hang on, it's my dream to go to Vegas and bang a load of money out on crap tables and give it a big one around Caesar's Palace. Like, you're going to give me $5,000 for that? Like, if you want something, go and work for it. And again, it's that entitlement.
Great.
Again, it's not. And I know a few years ago there was a lot of people putting these GoFundMes out on the underground, and it was like, oh, so and so's got a GoFundMe, and it was almost like there was an obligation of people to chip into it. It's like, hang on a minute, I basically work two jobs.
Yeah.
Like,
It's the same thing. We used to go and work in big, I don't know, I used to work in call centres, and obviously there would always be like, oh, we're doing a little grab around for Karen's birthday right now type thing. And I'm like, I don't even know who Karen is.
no, exactly.
Like,
I've worked in a job before where two people went off on maternity leave, and I didn't like one of them, so I put twice as much in the person I did likes. So it's like, oh, can you put a $5 into this? I was like, no, but I'll put a $10 into the other one. So no, I think that there's like charity. I donate to charity. I do bits of charity work. I'm big on that. I think that charity is something that's amazing, and charity should be a hand up, not a handout. And I think when it becomes a handout, it's like, oh, so and so wants to go and do the Worlds. Well, brilliant. Either his parents need to bankroll it, he needs to go and get a job, or send them around to clip my eyes and wash my car, and I'll give him a tenner.
Yeah.
You know, because you don't learn anything, and that's not a good life lesson to learn when you go into adulthood. That, oh yeah, I wanted to go and do like the Worlds in Vegas despite being diabolical, so my parents gave me the money for it. It's not, and that's something that I sort of struggle with my own kids, that I'm trying to bring up my girls, that I'm giving them everything I didn't have as a child, but trying not to just, you know, develop two entitled little so-and-sos.
Exactly.
You know?
Sorry, I had to not laugh at some of these fucking questions. Some of these are fucking...
I was expecting that, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't know if you were expecting a couple of these ones. This one made me laugh because it's great. How many espressos and angel slices should a man eat in one go?
Yeah, so Tom Schuyler once gave me what was it? I think he gave me a coffee with 3 extra shots in, and then like 3 angel slices. Like the little ones. So like, you mean, you're the nutritionist, mate, sugar and caffeine through the roof?
Yeah,
Yeah,
why not?
I was a legend at training for the first 20 minutes.
They got put to sleep and probably stayed asleep.
I got in there. I was like, sparring, lads, sparring. You know, undiagnosed ADHD as well, plus all that sugar and caffeine. So yeah, I was a hero for 20 minutes, and then had the worst hour of my life afterwards. So yeah, it's not something I'd advise. It's like I remember when I did the Ace Submission Grappling Tournament, and they gave us like a sort of goodie bag for everyone. And in there was like a can of Monster. I've never drunk Monster in my life, and I was like, I am not drinking Monster before a grappling tournament when I don't normally do it. So the Monday after, I was going to do, I was going to do some early morning training, and I was like, I might see what this is like, because I normally have a coffee in the morning, and then I'll go and train. So I banged this can of Monster, and like roof of my mouth's gone numb. I was like, yeah, this don't react well with me at all. You know, it's like me and caffeine, it does funny things.
See, I don't like coffee, but I'll have my 11s as one can of Monster a day, and that's it.
Well, it happened a few years ago when my youngest was born. When my eldest was born. I sort of was like, right, I'm going to get to the gym. So I got up 5 o'clock in the morning, banged a coffee. I was like, right, I'm going to get down to the gym and do some training. And I've opened my front door, and there's a bloke in my doorway. Right, in my doorway.
Yeah.
So I was like, I sort of looked at him and I thought, I got a newborn and my missus upstairs. Like, only one of us is getting out of this, big lad. So I threw my car keys on the floor and I've gone for him. So I've got him pinned up against the fence, ready to like smack him. Called him every name under the sun. And it was only then I looked down and saw a pint of milk in his hand, and it was my milkman.
Oh, mate.
like you know, so like this poor bloke in like November, you know, freezing cold, wrapped up with like a hood and like, you know, a scarf on and that, has just been like assaulted by this fully caffeinated orangutan flying out of the front door, you know. And it woke my missus up, and she's like, "What's going on?" I was like, "I've just nearly beat the milkman up." So she made me put a box of Quality Street out in the little milkman thing we've got out there the next day. So yeah, big shout out to Milk and More.
I can attest that the first 2 weeks your newborn comes home, you've never felt sleep deprivation like that. And you've been in the fucking services. Sleep deprivation is fucking everywhere. Those 2 weeks, the worst thing you can have in your life.
Yeah, it's when
when I get stressed out, my eyes start twitching, and I'm not even joking. Someone could have like mistaken me for having Tourette's. I was like, I just couldn't fucking like operate for 2 weeks.
It's when that baby's crying, and you've got to get like a bottle sterilised. It's the longest 3 minutes of your life. Oh, it's terrible. You know, but yeah, right. What else is on the list of doom then?
Cool. Fucking hell. I mean, you've already covered the human fridge freezer evolution from Portugal.
Oh yeah, that was bad. That was life threatening.
Some of these are random and I don't get, but I guarantee you'll be like, oh yeah. Asking which garage does the best cream cheese sandwich.
Tesco's salmon and soft cheese. They've changed the recipes, so I don't eat them anymore. But that used to be that was my downfall. I've not really got like a sweet tooth or anything like that, but I just like nice food. It's all the stuff like I wasn't allowed as a kid. Do you know what I mean? All the stuff that was like, you know, like you know, I just grew up on like Tesco value food and you know wearing Primark clothes.
Well, there's probably an infamous question: is it cream first or jam first with scones?
Oh, it doesn't matter, does it? All turns into poo at the end of the day, doesn't it? So
doesn't matter. That's probably even more.
I don't get this one. This one just says wrist locks. No question mark, no dots, nothing. Just
that's
just
so that's either from who have I upset with wrist locks. That's either from Josh Randall or from Rich Austin.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I know that from. So like, shout out to Josh Randall. Josh Randall is like, have you seen you know Boris the Blade in Snatch?
Yes.
Whatever you do to Josh Randall, he just keeps getting up again. Like you spar with him and he just gets filled and he just gets up. He's like, we go again, you know, like literally. Shout to Josh because he's quality.
He did well at the British.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised he did well because he is him. Josh Box as well. Do you know Box? Yeah. So like him and Box, fair play to him. They turn up. They train hard. Their first one's on the mat. Their last one's off the mat. They're doing extra rounds. They clean the mats down. They don't mind getting an absolute kicking and coming back for more. It's all that stuff I've whinged about throughout this podcast about, you know, being humble and the humility and you know, training hard and learning and looking at your own deficiencies. Those two just embody it, and I got a lot of respect for both of them because it's probably not very nice getting reverse scoffed by me for 10 minutes.
No.
You know, and like they keep turning up and keep going for it. But yeah, when Randall got his blue belt, I wrist locked him to death. It was quite funny. It's become a bit of a rite of passage, I think. Someone gets a blue belt, and I'm like, like you know, the big bear waving from the zoo.
Do you look over to Rich like, can I? He's
yeah,
like,
literally.
go on,
oh yeah,
go
but
on.
no, big fan of wrist locks. It was like, it was. yeah, it was when I got my blue belt, it was like open season. That was because Rodrigo had like done it to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, all right, time for me to start being the pigeon rather than the statue. But yeah, no, love a wrist lock. I find that they're massively underrated. I think that people get really like upset with wrist locks and then go and drill heel hooks. Like you've got people that are like, oh yeah, I'm a leg lock specialist, and you wrist lock them and they're like, oh, prison rules is it? And they proper get upset. Yeah. And I'm like, you cannot drill a move that puts you out for 9 months. And then get upset about someone wrist locking you.
It
but
reminds me of, what was it? Was it Sean Strickland and Orlando Sanchez?
Oh, with the yeah.
I know, just like but anyway, sorry.
Mate, I've been wrist locked by Crocks and multiple other people. I think you even tried to wrist lock me, and I was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like, you tried to do it to me. I was like, "What are you doing?" Right, he was like, "Trying to wrist lock you," and I was like, "No."
I think personally with wrist locks, I think it's a good way of like starting to lever the door open. So I find with wrist locks, if someone's in your full guard, chucking a few wrists, especially if you've got people who like to settle into like that combat base and bring the knee up into the middle to separate the guard, chucking a few wrist locks up there makes them want to defend. And if you throw wrist locks in with collar grabs, I find it destabilises the base and it makes them easier to sweep. And if that wrist lock threat is there, they don't want to put their hands in. And you know, particularly I work off of omoplatas a lot. There's always a wrist lock available there. It's a good option, I find, from the Kimura. If you've got someone uber strong, you can just switch to that wrist lock grip. But yeah, I've chucked a few out at the club, to be fair. It's just I just love how upset people get.
I'm going to say I've not been wrist locked by you yet.
Have you not?
No.
Yeah.
Guess what's gonna happen?
Let's come down and roll, mate. Be like what Rory said earlier, wrist locks today, Jay.
I'm literally there, just like tucked in, like go on then.
But you know what people do, and then when people do that, their base goes.
Yeah.
People do start to T-Rex. They start to come in like that because they worry about it, or they'll try and like keep their hands in that, and it just ruins their entire base.
Bonus points if I wrist lock you.
Yeah, you can do. Rich does. Mark did this morning actually.
So this is like a bit of a double. Well, this is someone taking the piss and adding a question at the end. So yeah, do as you wish. How do you get so sweaty within seconds of rolling? And stripes on belts, that'll make him nibble.
Yeah, stripes on belts, not a fan. I don't know. Sweat wise, always been a sweater. Don't know. Literally, don't know. Within 5 minutes of training, I'm like,
Mate, I'm the same.
Always the same. There's other people like it as well. I don't know. No idea. It just is what it is. Just happens. I like to think it's me working hard all the time, but there's no correlation to it. It's just whenever I start doing fizz. And then that's top teacher tip: don't wear a blue shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. See. Yeah. But then in terms of like stripes on belts, not a fan for what I said earlier. I think that stripes on belts is very closely linked to attendance. And I think attendance, it's like the old journey to the dark side, isn't it? Fear leads to hate, hate leads to anger. I think like stripes leads to attendance, attendance leads to random belts being given out, random belts being given out leads to you walking into another gym and looking like an idiot. And I think for me, if you need a bit of tape on your belt to keep you interested, potentially you're in the wrong martial art. You know, it's different in sports. Like so I know with karate, is that they do the mons in between. Yeah. So like if you're going from like, I think they go from like white to red belt, don't they? And if you don't quite make the grade, you get a certain amount of stripes of that belt to show that you're on a progression. But they've got a set syllabus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So without a set syllabus, what do the stripes mean? If there's no set, and again, maybe this is me going back to like my teaching background with, if you're going to grade somebody, you have grading criteria, whether it's an essay or whether it's maths or whatever. If you've not got criteria, what are you basing those stripes on? 9 times out of 10, they're on time served. You know? And I'm not a big fan of stripes. I think that they're used within some gyms to retain people that would leave.
In a gym where I've asked the instructor, I was doing photography work for him, so I won't mention who they are. And this was a couple of years ago. And he said to me, it's all based on attendance. There's a little tick sheet. And everything that you
and don't get me wrong, I know that with some gyms, so I know that they've started doing them down at Sweatbox, but only really for like white to blue.
I think it's white to blue.
And it's because they've got about 400 white belts.
I think Pez just goes, you double stripe white belt, come here. Like, it's just so you can pick people out.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose there's a place for it now, but I think that when it's used, if you can use it to show progression, then fair one. But I don't think you can. Because if I pulled someone out who's a 2-stripe white belt, in most clubs, and I said to the teacher, like, why are they 2-stripe white belt? Oh, well, they are. Yeah, but how do you know? What does 2 stripes actually mean? Does it mean that 2-stripe white belt, if we go back to defining jiu-jitsu, that you can, if you are a belt colour, you can beat a bigger, less trained opponent of the belt colour below, basically. Bigger, stronger, less trained opponent. So does that mean that all your 2-stripers can beat all your 1-stripers? Can all your 3-stripers always beat all your 2-stripers? Like if you haven't got criteria and you haven't got a way of grading,
I think the criteria applies more obviously for these lower belts more than anything else.
I mean,
it is the way that I would kind of look at it. In the
I just
sense
kind of think that if I, in a parallel universe, because I won't do it in this one, if I ran a club, if I was having to use stripes to keep people interested, I wouldn't want them there.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there's that ability to turn up and almost feeling like I've never had a stripe.
I think it depends on the individual, and because obviously we've got such a varied amount of people, even to the point who talk as if they've got the most. Okay, so that's an interesting point from a client perspective, right? When people start, they're full of beans. They're like, "Yeah, let's go. It's absolutely fine." Right? Month 4 kicks in. Yeah, complacency comes up. Right, because they've been doing it for so long, seeing the results, they know I can readdress this at some other point, right? And you kind of need to reframe as to where they're going to be achieved, right?
Yeah.
Now, some individuals don't even get that complacency part. They literally go all the way through, absolutely fine, hit the marker on the head, and just get to where they need to be, right? Which is absolutely fine. Because it's a long old game, it's going to be about how much you say you shouldn't be like that to keep. If there was someone who has great potential, but unfortunately their mindset's not wired in the same way, you're going to need some sort of incentive to keep them going.
Yeah, I kind of get that.
It's a shame. It shouldn't be like that, but
I just don't like the attendance based thing. Like fair play, Rich gives them out to white and blue belts if they can score on him. So like, there's literally two kiddies walking around a gym, or there was, because one guy got his purple belt. There was like 2 blue belts walking around a gym. Jack Smith, who's very good, Jack, and it was Randall actually walking around with stripes because they've got a score on Rich, And it's like, and that I like that because people look like, bloody hell, did you score on the boss,
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that's a great deal.
Yeah.
I like that.
But that's humility.
It's humility, but it's also you've got an instructor there, because another pet hate of mine is instructors who don't roll. And who won't roll with visiting students. I've gone to gyms before. I've been to grapple fonts. Do you want to roll, mate? Oh no. Why not? Oh well, I don't know you. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, what do you think I'm gonna do? Walk in and flying scissors your legs or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Flying triangle.
Yeah,
I'd love
exactly.
to see that.
Yeah, exactly. Be like the end of the world, wouldn't it? But like I just, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it, and I think that when you've got, like, again, that method there, if you score on me, you get a stripe. That's someone who's got a very, very realistic appraisal of their ability, that they're going to slip up the odd time, and when they do, it's worthy of people going, look, I am human.
Yeah.
I think you've got a teacher who doesn't roll.
Yeah.
Instructor who doesn't roll, doesn't want to roll with their students, doesn't want to roll with visitors. It's like, well, what are you actually, if you haven't got an injury, you should be rolling. If you're not injured and you're not a million years old, you should be able to back up the belt you're wearing.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think I listened to Charles and Owen's podcast the other day with Mauricio. They were asking him, do you still roll? He's like, yeah, but with people of my age.
Yeah.
So, I'm knocking on 66. Like,
yeah, or with people you can
if
actually.
someone injures me, I'm not going to be happy about
Yeah,
it.
with people you can trust, innit? But yeah.
So we'll move off of the old Instagram questions, but we do have the question from the previous guest.
Oh, we'll wait for that. We'll sign off with that one. We normally ask other questions, but I think we've covered them.
Covered everything. Yeah, no, fair.
So I think it's going to be the case of normally we ask about what is post comp meal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I think you mentioned Burger King was in there. It was just like sort of.
No, that was just because it was on the services. Like post comp meal, I tell you what, I've got some like. Basically, I think me and Rich are both plastic Italians. So my grandfather's Italian as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a big pasta fan. Yeah. So post comp, I'm smashing in a carbonara.
Yeah.
That's going to be the one. Yeah. But no, my grandfather's Italian and my nan speaks fluent Italian with a Bristolian accent. That's got to be heard to be believed.
Really?
Yeah, they met in Bristol. He came over after the war, so he's still alive. He has a tailor shop on Gloucester Road.
Yeah.
So yeah, 87 years old, goes to work 6 days a week. My wedding was basically a Tarcisio Panicia showroom of suits, of everyone sort of suited up. But yeah, I'm going over this summer because they're in Italy at the moment. But yeah, my nan, Bristolian accent, fluent Italian.
Incredible.
It's unbelievable. But yeah, no, so I like sort of like smashing in a good Italian after after training.
The other one we asked, obviously, but I think we've had a lot of it so far, is unpopular jiu-jitsu opinion that you have.
Oh yeah, I've got loads of unpopular opinions. I think the main one for me, I think in terms of unpopular, I think a lot of what I've said, people would agree with. And I think if people get their ass in their hands about, I didn't like what Crocks said about hard training and people like not being humble, it's like, well, if the cap fits, mate, you probably find people there. If people want to get aggy about what I've said there about not being able to take criticism and not being able to take coaching and not being able to take direct instruction, then you probably need to look at yourself. I think the only unpopular thing I've said is I don't think everyone should get a black belt.
Yeah.
That's my main unpopular one. I think if you think that doing a sport or an art or anything for long enough entitles you to something, there's no other sport or outside of martial arts that do that. If you play rugby for 40 years, you don't get to win a premiership.
We get paid for England either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've mentioned the sort of the military side of it. If you go and do X amount of years in the military, you don't just get handed, a commando beret or a para-reg beret. You don't, so, and yet it's weird that in jiu-jitsu, people sort of idolise black belts, but expect to be able to get to that level without putting the hard work in just by turning up twice a week for 10 years. I find that very strange. And actually, what meaning does it have then? I know for a fact that if and when I promote, because it's an if for me, if and when I promote, I know that it will only have been done when Pedro, Rich are happy that that's something they want to put their name to.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go out there and look like an absolute idiot.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So.
Yeah.
One question that was passed on and we've actually now kept in as a main question, which we think is very, very valuable. We didn't want to tell you this before.
Yeah, go on.
Right? What failure do you cherish the most?
That's quite a good one, that. I've learned more from failure. I think for me, it was getting absolutely battered at the first army comp I went to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just losing and walking away with literally default bronze. That's quite hard to take for me. But it's actually, do you know what? And again, full disclosure, it's on my Instagram. There's a picture of, I think, a default bronze or default silver on my Instagram. And literally, the prep I did leading up to it was the best comp prep I'd ever done.
Really?
Turned up, got filled in. But actually, the product of that was almost not immaterial, but because I'd done everything else in the build up to it, I was like, do you know what? I can take that from it. And from this, I've learned that actually, maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. There is another level. It showed me a little glimpse into what elite looks like.
Yeah.
And it's like when you see people like, I saw a bloke yesterday chiming in on Gordon Ryan's Instagram saying he reckons he could fill him in. It's like, are you joking, mate? Do you know what I mean? Like, you can dislike the bloke, but respect his skills,
Yeah.
And like when people were giving like, chiming in on Felipe Pena, being like, oh yeah, you're this, you're that. It's like that bloke could wipe the floor with everyone in your club. Just because he's not as good as the other guy, or arguably they're drawing now, aren't they? I think.
Yeah.
Just because he's not, not performed maybe as well as he wanted to after obviously Leandro got shot, doesn't mean that you can just message him like when you're doing like 2 classes a week with your 2-stripe blue belt, offering privates to people, going, oh, I could come and batter you. It doesn't work like that. So yeah.
Social media and technology is quite mad, and it's a little bit off on a tangent, but it's still very similar to it. So we've had a couple of clients recently who've been, unfortunately, didn't make it through to the final stage of Love Island. Right?
Yeah.
And it was then making sure that their sort of psychology was all set in place. They had lots of interviews about this, and I got the chance to obviously speak to a few people who knew some ex-contestants.
Yeah.
And they said the most creepiest thing about it was the DMs from people, right, threatening them in some weird way. And it wouldn't even be them personally. To one point, they said that they never posted any of their sort of family on them. It was just there on their post, to which they received a message saying, and again, it's obviously quite grotesque, that, oh, I'm going to find your nieces and I'm going to rape them and kill them in front of you.
People are just weird, aren't they?
And he's there like, what have I done to even do this?
I've been on telly.
Yeah. And you're just there like, what the hell? And you're like, this is just a random person.
So we see it. So it's funny. We see this with the children at work.
Yeah.
Like pretty much every school I've worked in, huge problem with social media, with them messaging each other, adding each other to group chats. Huge problems with sort of kids sending explicit photos of themselves to each other when they think they're in a relationship, and then other people passing it on. Like it is. I've learned more about apps and social media in the last 9 months from a lady up at Avon and Somerset Police than I think I learned in the previous 9 years.
Really?
Yeah, to the point where I'm like, my girls aren't having phones, not a chance. Or if they do, it will be incredibly highly locked down and controlled. But yeah, social media is pretty bad for that.
Yeah.
But in terms of like failures I cherish, like that little glimpse and being able to like step on the mat with a bloke who then went on to win. Like shout out to Josh, because I think what he's doing is brilliant, and he's a lovely guy with it as well. He's not arrogant, he's humble, and he could be arrogant. He's top boy in the Army Jiu-Jitsu club. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Gone and won the Euros at Gold Ultra Heavy.
Yeah.
But I think he got a bronze or a silver in the Absolute, and his first post was like, yeah, going after the Absolute next year.
Wicked.
That's what you want.
Yeah.
And I think being able to have a little glimpse of that was what was best about that failure. For me to go, do you know what? There's a whole layer above me, and if I'm going to go,
especially you put the grafting on the lead up to it as well.
Exactly. And I couldn't have done anything differently.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting looking at again where Mark is at the moment. Like I think he's doing everything he can do for a man with a full-time job.
Definitely.
And it's a privilege to be able to like spar with someone on that level. Same as when I was coming up at Pedro's, someone like Rory, who, there's a story about Rory rocking up to Naga in London in his work van with a work t-shirt on when he was a brown belt, stepping on the mat, battering I think 2 black belts and a brown belt, getting the belt and driving home again.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, literally, yeah. Literally, picture of him on the podium, Land Point t-shirt on, in his like pickup truck covered in leaves, like drove down there, walked in, won, got back in the truck, drove home, tapped out Hodger Gracie black belt in the final.
Really?
You know, and that was my example coming through.
Yeah.
You know, and again, where I am now, I look over and I see how hard Rich and Mark work, and that sort of inspires me to work harder because I want to try and keep up with them. Not that I can, but I try to, because then I want to be a good training partner for them. I'd never turn around and be like, oh, I don't want to do that.
That's fair.
You know?
I've got one more question actually. I'm
Go on.
intrigued. Obviously, for you, you balance a lot: kids, family, jobs, plural. There will be people out there listening to this right now who go, "I've just got too much on." What do you feel like is the key ingredient or the key sort of structure to keep you consistent with your training?
So I can't remember who. It was a podcast I listened to a few years ago. I cannot remember who it was. It wasn't Tex Johnson. It was some jiu-jitsu guy from sort of mid-America. He was quite big. It might have been Josh Hinger. I can't remember. But this podcast came out and he said basically, time is a currency, and it's one of those things like, do I want to be able to do, I don't know, yoga and do a full lotus? Well, if the answer is yes, then I need to work out how much of my time I'm going to spend to be able to do that. You know, it's like the example I gave you earlier on about when I sparred with Grant Osborne, MMA fighter at our place. We ended up against sort of like the cage wall, and it suddenly dawned on me, I know nothing about cage wrestling. Absolutely nothing. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where I was. And I was like, I've kind of got mount, but I'm kind of up against the cage. So do I need to pull him away? And as I tried to do that, he scrambled out.
Yeah.
But in my head, I was like, I'd like to know how to do that, but I don't need to know how to do it. So therefore, I'm not going to spend the time currency. So I think the two ways that I balance everything is, firstly, I've got a week planner. So I've got, my missus buys me one for my Christmas stocking every year.
Yep.
And it's literally 52 pages, week on a page, Sunday to Saturday. And everything goes on there from when the cat needs his worming tablet, all the way through to where I am and all the rest of it. And it's good for her because she can go.
Digital camera puff.
Yeah, it's good for her because she can go.
I'm going to have to show people. Like,
Oh, there'll be names on there and stuff.
Yeah, GDPR, mate. That's it.
Sorry.
So
basically, my calendar was empty and I had a J's in, and now I can't fucking see anything.
But this is what I mean. So for me, I plan everything out, and it's also like I have a two-way with my missus as well. Like I'll sort of just say to her, look, you know, what are you doing on Monday night? And she'll be like, well, I want to go to the gym and do this. Okay, not a problem. We'll have a couple of nights a week where our schedules changed recently, where Rich is now doing a class on a Wednesday night. I've said, look, I can't make it, mate. You know, that's the time I have with the family and with sort of other things I do. So I just think really writing it down and mapping it out, because otherwise your head will explode.
Yeah.
You know, and being reasonable, being able to say no. Like that's quite a big skill that I've got, is being able to say no. Like where I've had people in the past say to me, you know, would you better do privates? No. Why not? I ain't got time. Yeah. I'll kick around for 10 minutes after open mat though, or take some time to one side and show you what you want to do. But in terms of doing regular privates, it's one of the reasons why I don't do tutoring. Because I haven't got time to be able to fit tutoring in.
Yeah.
And again, is the juice worth the squeeze? If I'm going to get 50 quid an hour from tutoring someone for their GCSE or A-level history, fine, but that hour is then coming out of my training allocation, and would I rather train? Yeah. So that's how I do it. I do balance a lot.
It's a very interesting point from a business point of view. People obviously get concerned about putting their pricing up for things.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, look, would you rather work with 100 people at £10 to get that £1,000, or would you rather work with 2 people at £500 and you can give even more time to those 2 individuals?
And you'll probably get better results.
Yeah, 100%. You'll pay more attention. Only obviously reservation is obviously if you're going to go with a higher mark is that you can provide the service to that level
definitely. Like with my week, I do 4 jiu-jitsu classes. I do 2 strength sessions, so not condition, I do strength, so I just do 2 days of compound. And I do a conditioning day. So that will either be, that's usually an early morning run. So that's where I'll get out of bed 5 a.m, I'll go and smash 4 miles out, and that's before my missus and the girls are even out of bed. So I've done my phys before they're out of bed, so that's had no impact on my family life whatsoever. You know, it's just I've sacrificed an hour of sleep. And that's something else I've got better at, is sleep hygiene and making sure I'm getting 8 hours.
Nice. Good.
Because I noticed I was getting 8 hours sleep and being knackered.
I'm still surprised this day that people who can do late night training sessions, right, to then getting up at the first thing early morning.
Oh, I've got no issue with that. I can just go, my head hits the pillow and I'm gone.
I can't, I'm absolutely bad.
Yeah, she hates it. She's like that. She'll sit in bed and read her book, and I literally get in bed, put my head on the pillow.
I can't zone out enough. That's my problem. Like even that travel trip up back there, by the time I've come in the house, I'm still, about 30 minutes before I'm going to settle.
Yeah, now I'm quite good at just being able to get in bed and go to sleep.
Mad.
So, yeah.
Right, I think the last question from Paddy, have you got it off your phone so I'll just quickly read it?
Give me 2 seconds. Sorry, we got a fucking message on your Instagram. So from Paddy is, What would your dream combat sports matchup to watch be? And this includes which rules and which promotion it could be.
God. Right, it's Pride. It's got to be Pride, isn't it?
Pride, everything.
It's got to be Pride. And is this across like any?
Yeah.
So
Any
I
rule
can
set,
I can
any
time travel it. Prime Fedor.
Yeah.
All right. I'd like to see Prime Fedor versus Prime John Jones
Oh.
Fucking hell.
in Pride.
Yeah.
Is this
Pride-
John Jones at heavyweight we talking
John
about?
Jones at heavyweight,
Yeah.
Fedor at heavyweight. John Jones I would say ideally off of the party powder, but he seems to fight better when he's on it. So, do you know what I mean? Like, you know, I'd like to see that. I
What
think.
do you think the outcome would be? Or would you just sit there as a
I think John
fan?
Jones would soccer kick him to death, if I'm honest with you. I think it at like 3 o'clock in the morning on like, you know, Corn Street outside the kebab shop, you know. Do you know what I mean? No finesse, just like, you know, absolute boots.
It's something about that guy which is absolutely just insane. I think again it was a little reel breaking down that oblique kick and like watching,
Yeah,
like,
it's-
people hyper. And the thing is, you don't see it normally, and it's just like not prison rules, that type of stuff. But it's just go to it
it's
straight
essentially
away.
a striking heel hook.
Yeah.
Or a striking knee bar.
Yeah.
You know?
Vile in the slightest. But anyway, dude. Any other final questions for me? Any other questions
No,
you
that's it,
wanna
mate. It's
cover?
been a pleasure to be on, mate. We've covered a lot of ground, like.
Yeah, we have. It's been a
It's
wicked
nice
podcast.
to come in here
at
and
least.
gob off for a couple of hours, you know.
It's all good. Pretty good.
pretty much it.
Do you want to give shout outs obviously to clubs and that type of stuff and everything?
Yeah, so obviously shout out to sort of Pedro Bessa affiliates, everyone who started at Merton Road and sort of drifted out and formed their own clubs. I think we've got a really strong sort of lineage in Bristol with high standards, and I think actually like keeping those standards going and maintaining those principles is something that everyone's really good at. So yeah, shout out to you've got Rory at the bank, you've got Darren up at the way, somebody who's still up there, he drops in the bank as well. And you've obviously got Rich at RRBJJ. So yeah, absolute privilege to be able to train with such quality people. And we've got a really strong community in Bristol for Jiu-Jitsu. And I know a lot of that is due to Pedro deciding to live here. So yeah, that's my shout out's done.
Nah, that's cool, mate. Well, thanks obviously coming on board.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much. Cheers, bud. Thank
No
you.
worries.